Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Was Trained by Nedzu? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. Yagi Tashinori, the symbol of peace, looks at the boy on the rooftop in front of him. A boy who just wants to save others. A boy without a quirk. A scrawny, untrained twig of a child. And Tashinori sees himself. He thinks back to his childhood, the pitying glances he received and the laughter that accompanied discussion of his heroic aspirations. He thinks of how he never could have become a hero until Shimura Nana took a chance on him and offered him a sacred torch. He thinks of the monster who tore out his stomach and lung, of the gnarled flesh stretching across his side, where he's lifted his shirt to show the boy. And Tashinori knows what he should say. Without power can one become a hero? No, I should think not. It dies on his tongue. Minutes ago, he had seen the boy's tattered notebook, Hero Analysis for My Future, scrawled on the cover. He had gone to sign it while waiting for the boy to awaken when the contents caught his eye. Each page detailed a hero, their quirk, fighting style, costume, equipment, everything you could possibly analyze. As All Might, Tashinori never needed much help with analysis. Few villains could rival One for All. Even so, Tashinori had seen the work of analysts before. Tashinori trained his body to compensate for his lack of quirk, a choice that served him well when he received One for All. This boy clearly trained his mind. Were the boy a few years older, his work would be called unfocused and amateurish, but for an untaught middle schooler it was highly impressive. But? Thinks Tashinori. Don't I still have some paperwork to fill out with Nedzu about my upcoming employment? Perhaps he would be interested. My boy, he says, what is your name? The boy's green eyes dart up to meet Tashinori's for a moment before darting away. It's Midoriya Izuku. Young Midoriya's knuckles are white in his lap. Young Midoriya, you can be a hero. It's a short, simple phrase. It's all Tashinori wanted to hear growing up. And, seeing the tears flowing freely from the crouched child in front of him, he is not alone in that desire. Please, All Might, the boy chokes out. Don't lie to me. Please, tell me you mean it. Young Midoriya pulls his head up to look at him. Please don't just say what I want to hear. And doesn't that break Tashinori's jaded heart? Has the world grown so cruel that a child would think having his dream reaffirmed was a mere platitude? What symbol of peace allowed such a world? I mean what I say, young Midoriya. You said you wish to be a hero like me, who saves everyone with a fearless smile. Tashinori pauses. And you are mistaken. On 2 counts. He kneels in front of young Midoriya. The reason I smile as All Might is to stave off the overwhelming fear that comes with being a hero. You're afraid? Always, Tashinori nods. If not for myself, then for the civilians whose lives are in peril. Heroes risk their lives every day. My smile is not fearless at all. Young Midoriya. But it is reassuring all the same, don't you think? He grins at the boy to prove his point, and despite being in his emaciated civilian form, it seems to cheer young Midoriya enough for him to return a wobbly smile of his own. And the other thing? You should not be a hero like me. Young Midoriya gasps inaudibly. Shakingly, the boy stands. Thank you, All Might. Young Midoriya turns to the door leading inside the building. Tashinori sighs quietly, ignoring the taste of blood. It would seem he was not delicate enough. The scorch marks and waterlogging on young Midoriya's prized notebook tell an unpleasant tale, and his reaction to reassurance wasn't much better. You should be a hero like you. Young Midoriya whirls so fast he nearly falls over. Tashinori holds in a chuckle. Think of the other heroes, my boy. Is Endeavor a hero like me? Is Hawks? Best Jeanist, perhaps. He walks to the trembling young man and gently squeezes his shoulder. No 2 heroes are alike. Do not think that being a hero means you must be the next me. Not that being me was enough against All for One. Being the #1 hero has put me on a pedestal. I am still but a man, young Midoriya. Learn from me, take inspiration from me by all means. But do not try to be me. You will be a much greater hero as yourself than as an imitation. Young Midoriya's whole body is racked by his sobbing. Toshinori gently pulls the boy in, rubs circles on his back, lets him clutch at his chest and tuck his face into his oversized shirt. Young Midoriya's breath hitches, but his eyes have dried. Toshinori's gentle reassurances have done their job, and he pushes himself away from the hero. "I'm sorry about your shirt," he mumbles, wiping his face. Toshinori chuckles. "Nonsense, my boy. What hero would I be if I could not comfort a child in front of me?" He gives the boy a soft smile. This boy said himself that he wants to save others because he's picked on by his peers. He called saving others the greatest thing someone could do. And he was denied because he wasn't born right. Such pointless cruelty, hurting this boy for wanting to help others, Toshinori Yagi, the symbol of peace, thinks, but he won't be hurt again. Because I am here. Izuku walks home in a daze. He clutches his phone so tightly his knuckles are white, his vision focused on the screen where All Might is written above a phone number in his contact list. Holy! Not only did the All Might tell him that he could be a hero, but he complimented Izuku's analysis hobby? And he was apparently going to talk to Nedzu, the principal of his dream school, about it? And then exchanged numbers so he could schedule a meeting? Izuku had to be dreaming. He never woke up after the sludge villain nearly drowned him. There's no other explanation. A low booming sound drags him out of his thoughts. He pales. Izuku knows that sound well. Kaken! Izuku darts down the street towards the explosions, turning a corner and nearly running smack into a crowd of gawking civilians. Izuku spots a lady at the back. She can't control her gigantification enough to get through the buildings? Is that a limit of her quirk or her training? A pro-hero whose weakness was Ali's. Incredible. He weaves through to find Kamui Woods and Death Arms keeping civilians away from. No, it can't be. Izuku instinctively covers his mouth, the feeling of suffocation fresh in his mind. Because the sludge villain that nearly killed him not an hour before is right there. And now he has Kaken. And while the feeling may not be mutual, he certainly doesn't want Kaken to die. This is my fault, Izuku says to himself. If I hadn't grabbed him, if I hadn't needed to ask, if I hadn't wasted his time. He said you could be a hero. Well, with the heroes on site as a comparison, it didn't seem that hard. Put on a costume and stand around doing nothing. Not the time, Izuku. Focus. What does he have on him? His pens would make for a weapon in a pinch. He could throw his bag or notebooks, but blunt force won't do much to the villain's body. Only the teeth and eyes look solid. That's an idea. This is the dumbest thing he'll ever do. My smile is not fearless at all. Izuku smiles. He pushes past the crowd, ignoring the heroes yelling at him, yanks his bag off his back and hurriedly reaches around the front pocket for his pen. Izuku doubted he would get more than one shot at this, so he'd have to be closer. He was still 20 steps away. It's that kid, the villain spits. 10 steps. Deku. 5 steps. Izuku flings the pen directly at the villain's exposed, solid eye peering out from above Kaken's ear. The villain roars and Izuku grabs Kaken as the slime recedes. We're clear, he yells, dragging a sputtering Kaken off to the side. Izuku glances back in time to see Kamui Wood's preemptive binding, lacquered chain prison create a wooden cocoon around the villain. That won't hold the BSRD with a body like that. Kaken glares past Izuku for once. He can't fit his eyes or teeth through though, Izuku mumbles, more out of habit than a desire to contradict the explosive blonde. Kaken scoffs but doesn't dispute him. The two sit there in silence until the paramedics arrive to check on them. There was absolutely no need for you to put yourself in danger. Death Arms rants. Yesterday, Izuku would have apologized for getting in their way. Today, All Might told him he could be a hero. He watched as a gang of pro-heroes sat on their hands, and his adrenaline high hasn't waned yet. You're right, Izuku says, voice ice cold and stutter-free. I shouldn't have had to run in there at all. He narrows his eyebrows at the strong-armed hero. I threw a pen at the villain's eye. Why didn't you? There's enough rubble to use lying around. He turns to Kamui Woods. Why didn't such an up-and-coming hero think to move around the villain to where Kaken wasn't? Exploding? Or come from above? You could have pulled him out easily. Backdraft, putting out the fires didn't matter because Kaken was making more. You should have focused on the villain to prevent more fires in the long run. Izuku sighs. He dusts off his pants as he stands, unable to see the look on Kaken's face. Empty lady, if your quirk makes you too big to maneuver in streets like this, you should have learned how to evacuate citizens at your normal size. Izuku walks past them to where the paramedics are checking on Kaken to make sure nothing got in his lungs. Where are you going, kid? Death Arm says. Seeing as this villain nearly drowned me like half an hour ago, I'm getting myself checked out. Izuku is too busy shooting a glance at the heroes and misses Kaken JRK at his words. Well, the paramedics think he'll be fine. Nothing got in either of their lungs, thank God. They gave him some antibiotics to be safe and told him to go to a hospital if he got sick. At least someone there was competent. So, for the third time today, Izuku is on his way home. Maybe this time he'll actually get there without. Hey Deku. Good. FING. D-minute. That BSTRD. He really attacked you too? Kaken asks. Well, that's not what Izuku was expecting. Yeah, Izuku says slowly. Jumped me under a bridge. A hero saved me. It's probably for the best that Kaken never find out he met All Might. Kaken scoffs. I never asked for your help. I could have beaten him. There it is. Izuku was worried the villain had actually taken Kaken's body and was trying to act friendly as cover there for a moment. Kaken spins on his heel. At least you didn't get in the way. Shitty nerd. Probably the closest thing Izuku was going to get to a glad you didn't die after I told you to fling yourself off our school, so he'd take it. Izuku watches Kaken storm off until he turns a corner and goes out of sight. A spirited young man, says a familiar voice behind Izuku. He turns to see All Might in his emaciated form. Izuku straightens, then bows. I'm sorry, he says. If I hadn't grabbed you earlier, the villain never would have, and he got Kaken, and I dash. No, says All Might sharply. He takes a breath and starts again, gentler. I was careless. I was too focused on my time limit instead of securing the villain. Even if you hadn't hitched a ride, I would likely still have dropped the bottle. As I said, my boy, I am only human. Izuku flails his arms, trying to think of a rebuttal because there's no way All Might made such a serious mistake. All Might raises a hand to stop him. I was in the crowd, you know. My time limit was up, so I didn't act even though I told you pro heroes risk their lives every day. I'm just as bad as those heroes you chastised earlier. Oh my God, I told off heroes on live TV, Izuku mutters. All Might laughs, but there's no malice. Most of the top heroes show signs of greatness, even as children. Many of them claim that their bodies simply moved before they could think. That's what happened to you back there, yes. Izuku shakes his head rapidly. Actually, I was thinking about what you said on the roof? About how your smile wasn't fearless. How you liked my analysis hobby. So I smiled and tried to analyze the situation. Izuku clenches his fists. And quirkless me saved someone's life. Today I wasn't a weak, worthless, pathetic Deku. I was a hero. He beams at All Might even through his tears. All Might smiles back. You certainly were, my boy. Toshinori would offer him one for all. But not now. Not when this clearly means so much. Anyone who knew the Midoriyas knew that crying ran in the family, so it comes as no surprise to Izuku when his mother bursts into tears at the sight of him. He reassures her that he really is fine, going over what the paramedics instructed him for if he got sick. His mother listens along and suggests he stay home from school the tomorrow. Izuku doesn't need any convincing. Today has been exhausting, physically and emotionally. They sit down to dinner about an hour after he came home, and Izuku feels collected enough to talk about what happened. I met All Might today. He takes a bite of katsudon. His mother's eyes widen. I didn't see him on the news. It was before the villain got Kaken. He attacked me first. Seeing his mother's alarm, Izuku flailed his arms in a vain effort to wave off her worries. It's fine. All Might saved me before anything could happen. It wasn't fine. He'd blacked out, and that could have been bad. But his mother didn't need to know that. He said I could be a hero. Of course he did. Izuku's mother smiles sweetly. How could anyone think otherwise? She ruffles Izuku's wild green hair. You're smart and kind. Of course he saw your potential. Izuku beams. He wants me to meet Nedzu. The principal of UA? Izuku hums in agreement. He thinks he'll like my analysis. And isn't that a wild thought? All Might was impressed with his little hobby and thinks the world's smartest, stoat, ferret, badger, person would be too. Surely he couldn't be that impressive. After all, everyone at school just calls it creepy and useless. Like him. His mother must notice something from his spiraling thoughts, because she gently runs a hand down his face and pulls him back to the present. Your mind has always been your greatest weapon, Izuku. All Might has the experience to recognize it for what it is. And I'm certain Nedzu will see it too. The corners of her mouth pull a little further up her face. Do you have a time when you're supposed to meet him? Izuku shakes his head. All Might has my number though, he promised to let me know soon. The door to Nedzu's office opens just as Toshinori raised his hand to knock, as always. He flicks his eyes down to meet the gleaming eyes of the suit-wearing animal. What a pleasant surprise, All Might, says Principal Nedzu. I expected you to put off your paperwork for another few months. Toshinori laughs awkwardly. So did I, to be honest. Nedzu waves him in, a cup of tea sitting at the empty seat across from Nedzu's chair. Toshinori sits and cradles the teacup in his hands. Across the desk, Nedzu happily sips from his own cup, ensuring the silence went on just long enough to be uncomfortable. I actually wanted to discuss something with you. Toshinori breaks the silence. The young boy you've chosen as your successor, yes? Nedzu grins. His reputation preceded him, and yet Toshinori is always surprised by just how much he knows. Nedzu opens a file sitting out, and Toshinori recognizes the picture of young Midoriya on the first page. With his school uniform on, finding his information was child's play. Let's see. Name, Midoriya Izuku. Age 13. These records are from the end of last year, of course. Quirk, none. If he takes one for all, we'll have to change that at some point, but I can handle that paperwork. Nedzu looks up. I must admit, All Might, I have some concerns. That was news to Toshinori. Oh. Yes, look here. Nedzu flips a few pages ahead and spins the file around so Toshinori can read it. His grades are listed as being only average, and he is reported as having invented stories about his classmates for the purpose of getting them into trouble. Alarming, to say the least. Toshinori silently pored over the teacher's comments. Disruptive. Inattentive. Jealous of his peers. Middling grades in math and science. None of this sounded like the kind boy he met on the rooftop, the boy with a book filled with detailed quirk analysis. Actually, Nedzu, this may relate to what I wanted to speak to you about. Nedzu sips his tea while motioning for Toshinori to continue. He told me that he was often bullied, and he had a notebook titled something along the lines of, Hero Analysis for My Future. It was clear he cared a great deal for the book, and yet it was burned and waterlogged. Nedzu set down his teacup. Burns, you say? Nedzu closes his eyes and hums. That notebook is why I wanted to see you, Toshinori explains. I had the chance to look through it. His analysis is remarkable. It's clear he's not been taught, but his insight and observations are impressive. So, you've chosen an intelligent young man, whose bravery we have on record. Nedzu tilts his head. What is this really about, All Might? He asked me if he could be a hero without a quirk. Having seen his analysis, I said yes. At the time, I had not chosen him to inherit one for all. I thought then that it might be beneficial to see if you would be able to help him with his analysis. And now, he said something concerning when I spoke to him after the incident. He said that he wasn't a weak, worthless Deku, or something along those lines. Nedzu climbs onto the desk and begins pacing, a paw to his chin. So, we can surmise that Midoriya is likely being bullied by his peers, who are not afraid to use their quirks in spite of our public quirk use laws, and his teachers are not only turning a blind eye but actively sabotaging Midoriya as well. He stops and turns his head to look Toshinori dead in the eye. I believe it would be best to speak with Midoriya myself. If these analyses of his are as impressive as you say, I am certain I'll find a way to help him grow. And I can take the opportunity to ask him about Aldera Middle, in case our fears are unfounded. Nedzu pauses for a moment. Did you offer him one for all yet? I planned to, right after he saved his classmate. When I caught up to him, he took great pride in being able to save the other boy without a quirk. I didn't want to imply that his achievement was lesser because of his quirk status. That may have been wiser than you know, Yagi. Nedzu's concerned frown rises into a faux cheerful grin. But this probably negligent to abusive school is a problem for later. While you're here, you can finish your employment paperwork. Toshinori stifles a groan. Izuku stands awestruck outside the gates to UA High School. The main building dwarfs his apartment easily. 4 massive towers, one for heroics, support, management, and general education connected to each other through sky bridges about halfway up. The result looks like an English letter, H, from every cardinal direction. This is his dream school. Now that Izuku thinks about it, it's also the only school he's planning on attending. Might be a good idea to have some backup schools when they reject him. Don't think like that, Izuku. You will get into UA. All Might said he could be a hero, and Izuku believes him. It certainly is bigger in person, his mother says. Izuku is glad she's here. Just her presence sets him more at ease. You get used to it after a while, drawls a tired voice. Izuku jumps. Standing just inside the gate is a tired-looking man with unkempt black hair and dark, baggy clothes. A white scarf is loosely draped around his shoulders. An underground hero then. He seems familiar but I don't recognize him. Midoriya, Inko and Izuku, yes? Not waiting for confirmation, he pulls out a set of plastic cards and holds them out for the Midoriyas to take. Guest passes. Izuku looks over the pass as he and his mother follow the hero into UA Holy Sheet. Izuku knows, logically, that there won't be many people here on Sunday, the one day UA takes off, but the halls still feel empty. At least it makes it easier to look around. The hero leads them through the winding hallways to Nedzu's office. The rat's waiting for you, the hero says, gesturing to the imposing office door. Thank you for taking care of us. Izuku's mother bows, and Izuku follows suit. The hero huffs. It was only logical, Mrs. Midoriya. The man nods, then turns and walks purposefully down the hallway. Izuku takes a breath and raises his hand to knock. The door swings open before his knuckles connect, and both Midoriyas stumble back in surprise. Not immediately seeing anyone, Izuku looks down and sees a grinning white animal in a suit. Am I a dog, a mouse, or a bear? It doesn't matter, what's important is that I'm the principal. Nedzu stands aside and holds the door open, gesturing. Would you two care for tea? That would be wonderful, thank you, says Mrs. Midoriya. Izuku's ramblings about heroes with non-traditional quirks had well prepared her to see the intelligent animal. Izuku follows her into the room, taking stock of Nedzu's bookshelves and framed awards. The principal shuttled Izuku and his mother towards his desk, where 2 chairs sat across from Nedzu's own. As they took their seats, Izuku and Inko graciously accepted their teacups from the principal. From how warm it was, Izuku suspected it was fresh, though he didn't see where Nedzu had prepared it. The person in question simply sipped his tea. All Might spoke highly of your analysis for the future notebook. May I? He asks. Izuku pulls the battered notebook out and placed it in Nedzu's expectant paw. Nedzu handles the book carefully. His eyes dart around the page. I'm sure he was just being polite, Izuku mumbles. It's just a hobby, so I'm not that good. On the contrary, the fact that this is merely a hobby makes it all the more impressive, Nedzu says. It's certainly not professional grade, but I've seen third-year support students with inferior analyses after being taught the subject. Might I inquire as to what happened to this notebook? Izuku looks anywhere but at the principal in front of him. Sometimes my classmates, like to test out their quirks. They're not being disruptive, you know? So it's fine. Izuku sees his mother frowning out of the corner of his eye. And, sometimes people's stuff gets a bit roughed up. Nedzu hums but doesn't press. Instead, he glances up at Izuku's face and tilts his head slightly. What made you so interested in quirk analysis? Well, Izuku fidgets. Since I'll never get a quirk of my own, I thought I could make up for it by learning from, how pro heroes use their quirks. He's always been fascinated by quirks, Inko adds. Even before the doctor told us he was quirkless, he was always interested in just how they worked. Nedzu nods. Curiosity is a great thing. And you aren't wrong about learning from how established pro heroes operate. It would certainly be among the subjects I would like to teach you. A moment passes before the words process. Pardon? Izuku sputters, his eyes flick to his mother's equally shocked face. I am offering to tutor you in preparation for the UA entrance exams in just under a year. I appreciate the offer, Nedzu sir, but I can't believe you'd. Izuku tries to find the words. I believe my son wants to know why you're offering this to him, specifically. God bless his mother. Nedzu closes the book and hands it back to Izuku. When All Might told me about your notebooks, it piqued my interest, I'll admit, but it was meeting you today that cemented the decision in my mind. Nedzu clambers onto the desk and walks over to Izuku. To be honest, it is because you remind me a lot of myself and my students. You are driven, intelligent, and observant, but you are also unsure of yourself. Afraid. I became principal of a hero school to help children who felt that way. So, I am offering to help you. Nedzu tilts his head. The choice is of course yours. Izuku can practically feel his brain rebooting. Before his anxiety gets the chance to overwhelm him, he spins to his mother. Mom, I want to do this. What will you be teaching him? His mother asks. He probably should have asked that himself. Nedzu smiles slightly. I would like to help nurture his analytical skills. Additionally, one of our heroics teachers is currently bereft of classes and would be capable of physical training. Aizawa Shoyuda, you met him at the gate. The man in the baggy clothes. I will also be covering the general courses, such as math, English, Japanese, and science. Not enough to replace his current schooling, merely extra reinforcement. His mother nods. Then we accept. Excellent. Now, would you be able to continue meeting on Sundays? What did you think of him? Nedzu asks when Shoyuda returns from escorting the Midoriyas back out. Shoyuda sighs internally. He knew there was a reason the rat wanted him specifically to be their guide. What he hadn't anticipated was that Nedzu wanted his observational skills as an underground hero. He turns to the principal. He's a bundle of anxiety. Jumped much more than he should have when I startled him, and he watched my movements the whole way here and back. He pinches his nose. What's really worrying is on the way here I saw him cataloging exits along the way. Doors, stairs, even windows. I'm not even sure he knew he was doing it. Nedzu nods, expression grim. Worse than I thought. I knew he had little trust for authority figures, but to treat you as an active threat speaks volumes about the level of care shown to him at Aldra Junior High. Especially given something he said about quirk usage. To most people, Nedzu would look unfazed, but Shoyuda had worked here for a while, and been a student here before that. He could see the subtle tension in the principal that indicated he was angry about something. Oh. He said that his classmates would use their quirks, implying the teachers would allow it if it wasn't disruptive. Shuda's eyes widen at this. He's been an underground hero long enough to read between the lines. From how Nedzu's acting, he wonders just how extreme a student would have to act before it was called disruptive. That's highly illegal, he says. Illogical as our quirk restrictions are in some places, they are still law. You want me to schedule a meeting with the principal? No. Nedzu turns to face Shoyuda, and his eyes bore into the underground hero. I don't want to warn them that a hero is suspicious of them. Drop in unannounced sometime this week. Oh, that wasn't good. You think they're destroying evidence. It's not a question. I want my bases covered, his boss responds coolly. Nedzu takes a moment to collect himself, and Shoyuta has worked here long enough to recognize he has been dismissed. That's fine. He has some research on Aldra to prepare. Shoyuta already feels the headache coming on. He'd started looking into the Aldra school district later that same evening, and his results already disturbed him. The Aldra district lauded alumni with high potential. Anyone with a brain could tell what they actually meant was with powerful quirks. Worse, some of these children the school was so set on promoting had only graduated from elementary school. Alarm bells ring in Shuta's head. Ah yes, the age-old interview question, where did you go to elementary school? They're clearly responsible for how successful you've become. Further digging have revealed most of these high-potential students had average grades at best. Shoyuta reclines in his chair with a long-suffering groan. This is going to be a long day. Several hours later, Shoyuta had a strong base for the investigation. Nothing Ming, but he certainly had enough to investigate officially. The advertised high potentials gave full names and pictures, so finding where they ended up was far from the hardest thing Shoyuta had done. Several of them had ended up outside the Aldra school district for high school, some going into private schools. When he called those places to ask for more information, it turned out these students were highly memorable. It's not very common for a promising student to arrive acting like a self-entitled delinquent. A few teachers even reported suspending Aldra students within their first day. Some potential. Why didn't any of these teachers notice something was wrong with the students from Aldra specifically? As it turns out, they did. Hard to miss, really. But any time one of these schools reported their concerns, the investigation would drop in a few days. One of the schools even offered a public apology. If that didn't just scream blackmail, then Shoyuta needed to find a new career path. How the hell did this random school district have the power to threaten other school districts into silence? Shoyuta leans back in his chair, pinching his nose and sighs. Nedzu hadn't told him much about the Midoriya boy that caught his interest, but he could read between the lines. The rat had been suspicious of the Aldra district even before his report on the boy's behavior. That the kid thought a pro-hero, or at least someone who works with pro-heroes, since he wouldn't have recognized an underground hero, would be a threat to him spoke volumes. The kid clearly doesn't have a strong quirk that Aldra bends over backwards for. Shoyuta sends the rat an email compiling everything he found. Nedzu has more resources to investigate how Aldra silences complaints. Shoyuta looks at the clock and groans. It's almost time for his patrol. The rat told him to drop in unannounced sometime this week, and Shoyuta suspected the sooner the better. Tomorrow he would be giving this junior high a personal visit. Shoyuta wasn't totally sure what he expected Aldra Junior High to look like. Shiny and modern, showcasing the wealth that allowed it to silence other schools? Dilapidated and decrepit like the morals of everyone who worked there? That's not fair. The janitors are probably okay. Probably. If he were being honest though, Shoyuta should have expected it to look like it did. Totally average in every way. Brick and plaster outer gate, steel and concrete main building. For stories, clock on the front. If someone asked Shoyuta to describe the most stereotypical school he could, it would probably look like this. Can I help you? The receptionist, a well-dressed young man, looks up from his computer screen. Wordlessly, Shoyuta pulls out his hero license and shows it to him. The receptionist pales. Aizawa Shoyuta. I'm a teacher at UA. Shoyuta drawls. I'm here on behalf of our principal regarding potential future students. I'd like to speak with the principal here and possibly observe some classes. If he frames this right, he'll probably get them to incriminate themselves for him. As if to prove his point, color immediately returns to the receptionist's face. Of course. I'll let Principal Origana know. He pushes a button on the landline phone dock and speaks into the mic, explaining Shuta's purpose for coming. Shoyuta hears this Principal Origana respond through the phone speaker. The receptionist looks up at him. Go right in. Shoyuta grunts and obliges. Principal Origana sits at his desk. Shuta's first impression of him is sharp. His face is angular, his suit fitted. His grin confident but not reaching his eyes, which are narrow. I hear you're looking for potential students, the principal says. Shoyuta nods. On behalf of the principal of UA. Yes, I'm not surprised. Bakugu's such a promising student, I expected UA to notice him. Shoyuta stays quiet. The easiest way to get information out of someone like this is to let them run with their own assumptions and not interject, forcing them to continue the conversation themselves. It only takes a few seconds for Origana to break. Bakugu Katsuki, yes? He has the best grades in the 3rd year. Not to mention his quirk. It's perfect for heroism. Shuda's eyes narrow. With Bakugu's talents, it's only natural he would be scouted early by UA. Could you go back a moment? Shoyuta says coolly. What's this about Bakugu's quirk? It's strong, possibly the strongest quirk any student in the Aldra district has ever had. It's called explosions. It allows him to ignite his nitroglycerin sweat by generating sparks in his palms. That sure sounded safe to use around other people. Origana leans forward in his chair, resting his elbows on the desk. And his control is impeccable, Mr. Aizawa. He can determine the exact size of the blast, from a small pop to a bigger burst. You've seen this control? We at Aldra believe that every ability one possesses could be critical to one's future. To stunt such growth would be absurd. You encourage quirk usage amongst the students. So long as it isn't disruptive, I don't see the harm. The harm, sir, Shoyuta says, is that you just confessed to encouraging students to illegally use their quirks without proper public use permission. Origana's confident grin wavers. His hand clenched together, and Shoyuta can see the knuckles whiten. Origana opens and closes his mouth a few times as he thinks of a response. Shoyuta waits for about 5 seconds before putting him out of his misery. I must not have been clear earlier. Shoyuta pointedly ignores that he did so intentionally. I'm here on behalf of Principal Nedzu because he has taken a personal interest in one of your students. And in his interactions with this student, he has come to believe that this school district is actively engaging in criminal negligence or abuse, as well as encouraging illegal quirk usage. Shoyuta smiles. It is not a kind smile. I am here to see if these concerns have any merit. Clearly they do. Now, just a minute here, Aizawa. You've already wasted enough time with this farce. As a pro-hero, who is part of an active investigation, I am demanding you hand over your archived security footage as evidence. Failure to comply will result in charges of interfering with an investigation and open you and the school to public scrutiny. Shoyuta PPS his head and glares. More so than you are already, I mean. Shoyuta steps directly in front of the principal's desk and leans down to be at eye level. Origana ball his fists tight enough that Shoyuta thinks he can hear the muscles strain. The principal's body trembles, and he bites his lip. His eyes flicker around the room, avoiding the pro-hero, probably trying to find a way out of this. Eventually, Origana slumps back in his chair. Fine, the principal spits. He turns to his computer and types away, pulling up a folder filled with video files. Allow me. Shoyuta retrieves a USB drive from his belt. Origana hesitates, then moves aside and lets Shoyuta plug in the drive. Shoyuta wonders briefly whether the rat put some kind of virus on this flash drive to give himself a backdoor into Aldra's network before deciding that he wouldn't need one. Once the process finishes, Shoyuta removes and pockets the drive once again. He can see himself out. Neither he nor the principal bothers saying goodbye. Nedzu is a master at recognizing patterns, and he does not like the pattern he found. Every investigation into Aldra, which Aizawa already warned him had all been dropped, had officially been settled out of court. What concerns Nedzu is the law firm representing the Aldra district. Most of their clients were large corporations, like Feel Good Incorporated. Did a relatively small school district afford such good lawyers? No wonder none of the other schools had been able to touch Aldra. Nedzu's phone lights up with an incoming call. Aizawa. Interesting. He must have decided to have his personal meeting as soon as he could. He confessed to the illegal quirk use on his own, Aizawa says as soon as Nedzu answers. Was proud of it even. Excellent. Anything else to report? They're grooming some hero hopeful named Bakugu Katsuki. If he tries out for UA, Keep a close eye on him. Also grab their security footage archive. Thought you might be interested. Nedzu cackles. What would he do without such competent humans willing to aid him in the destruction of incompetent establishments? It's about 10 minutes after the bell, and Katsuki just wants to go home. It's Monday, his first day back after the villain attacked him. Spending the day with shitty teachers who can't teach him jack, surrounded by his cowardly lackeys who left him to the slime BSRD, and worst of all Deku, really fantasy. Katsuki took out some of his frustration on the shitty nerd and ended up falling behind all the other students who left for the day. He walks outside, seeing some homeless-looking guy standing on the path, a hand to his ear. He's talking to himself too. Crazy homeless people. Move it, hobo, he grumbles, shoving his way past the unkempt guy. Ah, Kaken. He's a pro-hero. Deku, leave me alone, would you? Wait, pro-hero? Katsuki does a double take. The guy's in all black, baggy clothes. His hair is a mess, and it doesn't look like he's slept since before Katsuki was born. Though now Katsuki can see he was using an earpiece. You don't look like any hero I know. The hobo has the audacity to roll his eyes at Katsuki. I'm an underground hero. I'm not supposed to be well known. What's the point of that? If you're gonna be a hero, why bother if everyone doesn't know you're the best? He turns to stomp off home. Saving lives. Katsuki pauses mid-step. The point, kid, is saving lives. I don't give a DMN about the rankings. I could be the #1 hero in Japan, but it wouldn't make me better at my job. The hobo turns his back to Katsuki and addresses Deku. The rat's looking forward to your next talk. Deku perks up. Oh, Nedzu? I'm excited too. He beams like he didn't just suggest he knew the principal of UA. BSDRD's been holding out on him, laughing behind his back about all the heroes he apparently knows. Katsuki snarls. Deku, you cheat. Acting all superior to me in class, and now I find out you know heroes and didn't tell me. Deku sputters. Acting superior? Kaken, what are you talking dash? Katsuki fires a weak explosion to cut him off. Don't play dumb, UBSDRD. All this talk of being a quirkless hero, like you don't even need a quirk to surpass me. Kaken, Deku says slowly, brow furrowed, are you an idiot? Deku blanches when he realizes what he said, but all Katsuki sees is red. He screams and launches himself at Deku. Something pulls him back. He hits the ground tangled in that hobo's scarf. He tries to blast the DMN thing, but his palms don't spark. Stop using your quirk, kid. You're giving me dry eye, the hobo drawls. What the hell does that mean? Illegal quirk use and attempted assault right in front of a pro hero? You're Eraserhead. Deku exhales, his eyes shining. Sake, of course the nerd knows who this loser is. You disable the quirk factor of whoever you're looking at. That explains why his explosions aren't working right now. The dry eye too, if Katsuki had to guess. The hell's your problem, a-hole? He's a quirkless Deku. Who gives a sheet? Wrong answer, apparently, as the DMN scarf constricts. Deku, you keep calling him that. What do you mean? Short for Dekunibu, can't do anything, because he can't. Deku flinches, and Katsuki smirks in momentary satisfaction. I give a sheet, Bakugu Katsuki. Katsuki stops struggling in the scarf at the sound of his full name. I am here on behalf of Principal Nedzu of UA to investigate Aldra for encouraging illegal quirk use. It seems they've also encouraged you to make a pariah of Midoriya. The scarf pulls Katsuki up, dangling him in front of the hobo, who Katsuki can now see has glowing eyes and floating hair. Do you know why he sent me? The hobo doesn't wait for an answer. I'm a teacher at UA. I expelled my entire class this year because they have no potential for heroics. And from what I've seen, neither do you. Katsuki scoffs. Of course he has potential. His quirk is perfect. Dumbass is just jealous because his quirk only cancels others instead of letting him do things. Deku says, and Katsuki rolls his eyes. Eraserhead, sir? What? You mentioned illegal quirk use. Isn't I thought they weren't being disruptive? Midoriya, he destroyed your property and just tried to attack you. Sure, talk about Katsuki like he's not here. That's fine. But it's fine, Deku says, scrunching his eyebrows. I'm quirkless. The hobo pinches his nose. It's not fine, he says. You shouldn't be treated that way. And I have enough evidence from today alone to get this school shut down for negligence and abuse, and hopefully the rest of the Aldra district. Deku blanches, and for once Katsuki doesn't blame him. Negligence and abuse? The F-dash? But don't you have homework from the rat? Deku stiffens. He dashes past, waving. Sorry, Mr. Aizawa, I have to get home. Katsuki clicks his tongue as he watches him disappear through the gate. I heard you want to be a hero, the hobo says after several seconds of silence. I will be a hero. The best. It's a vow he made over 10 years ago and he'll DM well keep it. Then you'll be delighted to hear that I've decided not to blacklist you from every hero school in the country. The hobo's eyes bore into Katsuki. But only because it's clear this place has taught you to act like this. I sincerely hope that in the next 10 months you'll have cleaned up your act. His scarf unwarps around Katsuki, and he drops to the ground. Katsuki stands up, adjusting his bag, and sets off home, ignoring the muttered, problem children from the hero. The hobo doesn't know what he's talking about. Bakugo Katsuki will surpass All Might. Bakugo Katsuki will be the best. Ever since Aizawa brought him the files, Nedzu had been poring over the security footage. There was evidence so much evidence that Nedzu could likely get Aldra Junior High shut down within the hour, but Nedzu would never settle for a small victory in this case. His fur bristles, his teacup rattling as his paw shakes. These monsters saw one of the most promising minds Nedzu had even had the pleasure of meeting and had the audacity to try and destroy him. Patience. Nedzu takes a deep breath. Anger will only make him sloppy. As frustrating as it is, Nedzu knows that this situation is delicate. If he acts carelessly, the Aldra district will burn the junior high to save the elementary and high school. He'll need a significant offense, preferably more than one, that would justify investigating the district itself and not the school. Criminals are much like bugs, Nedzu finds. The moment a threat presents itself, they scurry out of sight to continue another day. Nedzu will not give them that other day. Currently, the 47th clip of Bakugo Katsuki and Midoriya Izuku played on his screen. And much like the previous 46 clips of these particular students, the moment Bakugo was anywhere near Midoriya, it ended. Nedzu's ears pull back, and his sharp teeth pull at his mouth. No one could deny that this footage was altered. But without the originals, Nedzu wouldn't be able to properly bring Bakugo to heel. It was, however, another nail in Aldra's sizable coffin. And oh, it has been so long since Nedzu was a grave digger. And how has your week been? Nedzu asks. It's Sunday again, which means it's time for Izuku's first official lessons with Nedzu. He can still hardly believe this is happening. Good. Izuku beams, before his face falls slightly, his brow furrowed. But it was weird too. Nedzu pulls a fine portable chess board out from under his desk and sets it on the table. How so? He asks, setting up the board. Izuku hums. Well, I saw Mr. Aizawa on Monday, and he said something about investigating the school for abuse? And for the rest of the week all the teachers seemed on edge. Why might that be? Nedzu places the last pawn into its starting position. Black or white? White, please. And, I guess because they're worried about the investigation? But they didn't do anything, did they? Nedzu's ears flick. Izuku swallows and moves a pawn forward. Well, Midoriya, oftentimes innocent people are nervous around heroes and police during such investigations because they are afraid that they might be accused of some wrongdoing, whether warranted or not. Nedzu moves a pawn of his. And of course, the guilty are nervous because they might be caught. Paradoxically, it can be more suspicious if a person doesn't seem anxious. That's why some people say liars don't look you in the eye, right? Izuku realizes the irony of this question since he himself is currently focusing on the board to avoid looking at Nedzu's face. Precisely. Although, as I have just alluded, there are many reasons an innocent person may be nervous. Now, back on topic. Why do you think your teachers are afraid? Izuku places a thumb to his lip. Mr. Aizawa said that they were encouraging illegal quirk use, and that it wasn't okay even if it wasn't disruptive, even though I'm quirkless. And he also said something about abuse and neglect, so maybe that? But the teachers never hurt me, so maybe the neglect? But what could they have been doing that they weren't? They were teaching after all. Izuku Mrs. Nedzu's ears flicking again. Maybe the quirk use and the neglect is related? Were they supposed to train quirk somehow? It is fascinating to hear your mind work. Nedzu smiles gently, well, as gently as an animal can smile. You say your teachers have never hurt you. Have they allowed you to come to harm? That's different though. Kaken's going to be a great hero, and he's just the quirkless kid with no future. It's not like Kaken ever interrupted class. Oh, okay, so maybe Kaken interrupted class a few times. It's fine, his grades are good. He didn't need to pay attention. But the other students did. If they were struggling and he took time away from the lecture. Have your teachers ever hurt you emotionally? Nedzu asks, moving his bishop to take Midoriya's rook. That doesn't count though. He should get over it. Yeah, they would call him out and say he was unrealistic and call him stupid or unevolved if he got an answer wrong, but he shouldn't let things like that get to him. And sure, the teacher called him out for planning to attend UA, then left him at Kaken's mercy, but he shouldn't be affected by that. Izuku blinks the wetness from his eyes and moves his knight to take Nedzu's bishop. Nedzu moves his rook down. Check, and I do believe, mate, Nedzu says cheerily. Izuku sees it now. The bishop was a trap to draw his knight away from the king. You did wonderfully though. I enjoyed myself. Izuku nods, hollow. He's not totally sure what he's feeling at the moment, but whatever it is, this loss is amplifying it. Midoriya, Nedzu begins softly. Your teachers at Aldera? They are wrong. You aren't stupid, you aren't some genetic freak to be scorned or mocked. And they aren't qualified to train quirks, nor are supposed to allow the usage of any quirk on campus. Izuku looks up at the principal's face. They have hurt you. And I'm so sorry for that. You don't deserve it. And Izuku can see it in his eyes. Nedzu means it. That's all it takes for him to break down into wailing sobs right there in Nedzu's office, with the principal patting his shoulder and telling him it's okay to feel. What did you learn from our game? Nedzu asks once Izuku has calmed down again and rehydrated. I lost focus on the greater picture, Izuku mumbles. I wanted to take your pieces instead of put you in checkmate. Nedzu nods. Self-reflection is good, Midoriya. Do not let it become self-flagellation. Would you like to know a simple trick to help you strategize in the future? Izuku nods, wiping his face with his palm. I ask myself, what is the single worst thing that my opponent could do my plan, and then preempt that? What about the second worst thing? Izuku says, and Nedzu grins predatorily. It feels safe, for some reason, as though Nedzu is turning that grin against Izuku's enemies. You're learning. Nedzu cackles. Yes, you are left vulnerable to a suboptimal play by your opponent. But never assume your opponent will make a mistake. Capitalize on them should they appear, but always assume your opponent is doing exactly what they mean to do. And with experience, you will find you usually have everything you need should your opponent attack you in a different way than you were preparing for. Nedzu pushes his chair back, hops down, and walks around the desk to Izuku. Before we break for lunch, I have one more question for you. Aizawa informed me that the prevalent opinion at Aldera was that your quirk and your value to society were one and the same. Do you believe this is true? Izuku hesitates. They've said. He slumps in his chair. I can assure you, Midoriya, that this hostility to weak quirks, or in your case none at all, is unusual. Izuku snaps to attention. I have a personal interest in discrimination, as I'm sure you can imagine, so I took the liberty of researching many forms of it over the years. And what you've gone through is an extreme. It is? Nedzu nods solemnly. But know this. Whatever is causing this extremism amongst your teachers, I will find out. Nedzu smiles. I do believe it is time for lunch. After that, Aizawa will begin your physical training. Izuku gets Lunch Rush's autograph that day. Izuku fidgets in place. He's wearing workout clothes, Nedzu suggested he bring some, standing on the dirt field outside the physical education grounds on campus. Across from him is Eraserhead, or Mr. Aizawa as he requested to be addressed during training. Once you're done stretching, Mr. Aizawa says, I'll get a baseline for your capabilities. You'll be running through a handful of exercises like the ones you're supposed to do in your gym class. They are the exercises he's used to. 50-meter dash, grip strength, standing long jump, repeated side steps, ball throw, endurance run, seated toe touch, and sit-ups. Standard stuff really. Izuku puts his best effort into the exercises, but he doesn't feel terribly impressive with any of his scores except the distance run. Mr. Aizawa concurs. About below average to average on every test for your age group. Most hero hopefuls will have some level of physical training. If you don't want to be left behind, you'll need to do better than them. Izuku nods, wiping water from his bottle off his lips. Mr. Aizawa grins, his mouth stretching ear to ear. Luckily, 10 months should be plenty of time for you to build some good habits. Nedzu's already planning a daily workout routine for you, to help get you in shape. We'll be doing these tests again every week, in addition to sparring. Now, how well can you throw a punch? Not very well, it turned out. At least he knew to keep his thumb outside his fist. It's a cycle after a while. Mr. Aizawa orders him to attack in some way, watches Izuku screw it up, and corrects it. A tighter stance here. An arm turned wrong there. By the end of it, Izuku is exhausted but beaming. Mr. Aizawa grunts at the end of the drills. Good effort for a first-timer. We won't start sparring for a few weeks, but Nedzu is including drills like this in your daily exercises. You have potential. Don't waste it. Izuku doesn't remember the last time he's cried tears of joy so much in one day. Nedzu takes a brief glance away from his work to watch Aizawa demonstrate basic form to Midoriya. He'll have to let the young man know how impressed he is for being up to physical training after their emotionally draining chess time discussion. And after Midoriya's breakdown, Nedzu refuses to allow him back to Aldra. He will obliterate that disgrace of a school as soon as possible. It took him longer than he would like, but Nedzu has almost catalogued every instance of altered footage. Not all of it was as blatant as the removal of every interaction between Bakugo and Midoriya. Presumably, Nedzu reflects, that had been a rush job after Bakugo declared his intent to apply for UA. It was several months until those applications were due, but time always passes faster than you expect. They probably intended on doing a more thorough job later. Some edits were more subtle, shifting the camera's focus away from incidents of bullying, or moving to obscure that a teacher had been present. The altered footage alone should be enough to call in the Mustafa Department of Education, but Nedzu wants more. And luckily he has it. Aizawa's testimony. Nedzu snarls at the thought of calling that thing by the title of educator on Principal Origana, and the silenced complaints about the junior high demonstrate that the problem can be traced to the higher administration of the Aldra district, who should have stepped in a long time ago. Nedzu sports a feral grin as he compiles the results of the investigation into an email to the Mustafa Department of Education. Nedzu would prefer if he could place a single phone call and have everyone involved thrown in Tartarus, but he'll have to settle for letting the Ministry of Education and the police handle it from here. And if he makes a few calls, cashes in a few favors, pulls a few strings to speed up their response? Well, no one would ever trace it to him, anyway. It hurts more, Izuku thinks, now that he knows that what he's experiencing is wrong and that he doesn't deserve it. I've only spoken to Nedzu twice, but he's been nicer to me than every teacher I've had in the last decade. Combined. Not that that's a high bar or anything. Comparing learning from his school teachers to learning from Nedzu really emphasizes just how bad it is. Izuku wonders why he never noticed before. Izuku takes the best notes he can on Mr. Hoshiku's algebra equations on the board, considering that another student has been throwing paper ball at his head for the last half hour. Izuku's almost impressed by their perseverance. And at the very least they aren't exploding his desk. Now that he thinks about it, Kaken's been weirdly quiet since he ran into Eraserhead a week ago. Maybe the hero said something after he left? Izuku expected him to be business as normal after the sludge villain, if a bit more irritable than normal. And he was, up until Eraserhead told him off. Izuku drags himself out of his thoughts to finish his notes when the intercom crackles to life. Izuku huffs quietly. They did an announcement of how great Kaken was a week ago when he came back after the sludge villain. They aren't really going to bootlick him again, are they? They were not, in fact, bootlicking Kaken. A part of Izuku almost wishes they were. This is the Mustafu Police Department, on behalf of the Mustafu Board of Education. Oh, that couldn't be a good sign. Until further notice, Aldra Elementary, Junior High, and High School are to cease operation pending a full investigation. Students, please make your way to the gymnasium, where you will check out if able or wait for your parents to collect you if you cannot reasonably get home on your own. Members of staff, please come to the teacher's lounge. Silence hangs over the room like a blanket of fog. Mr. Hashiku stands slack-jawed at the front of the room, the blood draining from his face. Kaken whirls, teeth snarling, palm up, to glare menacingly at Izuku but stops when he sees the look of bafflement on Izuku's face. Instead, Kaken clicks his tongue and struts out of the room in the direction of the gym. This snaps Mr. Hashiku out of whatever stupor he was in, and he clears his throat. Class, to the gymnasium, please. And all at once the students are out of their chairs, scrambling to collect their things. Inko likes having the news on when Izuku is at school. It gives her some white noise, so she isn't alone in a silent apartment. We're low on milk too, she mutters, jotting it down on her grocery list when the current report catches her ear. Department of Education have closed the entire Aldra school district, pending further investigation of negligence, abuse, unlicensed quirk counselors, and encouraging illegal quirk use, among other crimes. The students have been let out. Early, with no word of where they'll attend in the meantime. Inko fumbles for her phone. Mitsuki's phone buzzes on her desk. She yanks it and shoves it to her ear. Ifuku, I do not care that those colors aren't in season right now, they're what the client ordered for that dress and they're what they'll get, goddamn it. There's silence over the line for a second, then, Mitsuki. That's not the voice of her coworker. Inko, I'm sorry, I thought, never mind, what's wrong? Mitsuki, the Aldra was just shut down. Only years of living with slick sweat prevents Mitsuki from dropping her phone. Izuku checks himself out at the gym. He lives close enough that he can walk home. He's one of the first people out of Aldra Junior High following the announcement. Lucky for him. He managed to get out before the press swarmed the front gate asking for interviews. Can they even hound minors like that? After learning that the whole, as long as it's not disruptive, thing was bullshit, Izuku has become aware he is frighteningly ignorant of the law. Hopefully Nedzu can help him with that. I'm home. Izuku calls as he swings open the apartment door. His mother is upon him in an instant, ushering him to the sofa. Izuku, have they been hurting you? She asks, once Izuku has a warm cup of tea in his hands. The moment they announced the school was closing, Izuku knew this conversation was coming. No, he knew sooner. His mother hadn't pressed him about the quirk use he mentioned to Nedzu last week, but he wasn't going to get out of it again. He closes his eyes. My classmates. He doesn't hear his mother react. The teachers? Never stepped in. The teachers encouraged it. Said they deserved it for being unevolved. Katsuki is supposed to look out for you, she says gently. He hums. Supposed to. Did he hurt you too? Yeah. It's almost a whisper. This time he hears her hiss. How long? Since I told him I was quirkless. How bad is it? It's bad, Mom. Izuku, she says, cupping his cheek in her hand, why didn't you tell me? There's no accusation in her voice, which Izuku appreciates. Izuku starts again, failing to prevent his tears. You have so few friends, I didn't want you to lose the Bakugas. His mother sighs. You come first, sunshine. Boys. But if you told me, maybe I could have helped Mitsuki and Masaru rein him in. Izuku grimaces, hiccuping a sob. He'd never thought of that. It's all right, sunshine. We should have noticed. I should have noticed. This isn't your fault. She helps him set his teacup on the coffee table. You shouldn't have had to choose like that. I'll talk to them after they get off work. You won't have to be there. She pulls him close, humming a soft tune and rubbing his back. Izuku doesn't even notice himself falling asleep. It's rather surreal to be told you aren't going to school because all of your teachers were arrested. It's been several days since the police sent him home early, and the Department of Education is still tearing the Aldra district apart. Most of the district administration has either resigned, been arrested, or both. It was decided that since the teachers actively groomed students to act out, his classmates would not have any black marks in their records, but their turbulent histories were noted down for future schools to look through. Schools could not officially refuse the Aldra students, but Izuku doubts many of his ex-classmates will enroll anywhere notable. Checking social media confirms that the Aldra scandal isn't national news, but Izuku doubts anyone in the prefecture hasn't heard about it. He's still adjusting, to be honest. The thought that everything he's put up with for the past decade, all the brave faces and lies he gave his mother, the covering for Kaken, the teachers insulting him, the guidance counselor telling him he had no future the one time she did see him, that none of that is normal, scares Izuku. This was something he was certain about. The sun rose in the east, all might was number one, and quirkless people were pariahs. And then the police dragged his teachers out of his school in HNDCFFS. With school out, Izuku's spending time at home with his mother. He's felt lighter ever since he admitted that Kaken had been bullying him. Like a wall between them has disappeared. They've been playing board games, watching movies, or just enjoying each other's company. Izuku knows why. He can see the guilt in her eyes when she turns from him. She blames herself for Izuku hiding his pain, like she blamed herself for his poor genetic lottery. He talks to her about it over dinner that night. It's a hard conversation. His mother and the Bakugas had met and talked the evening the news broke. Aunt Mitsuki and Uncle Masaru were shocked to hear about Kaken's behavior. Apparently, the school closing wasn't enough of a reality check for him. He had gone off about how it was Izuku's fault for being too weak to put up with what his classmates did. Despite the best efforts of his parents and Izuku's mother, Kaken refused to accept anything else as truth. Uncle Masaru suggested therapy, but Kaken made it clear even if they dragged him, he, as he put it, didn't need a FING shrink like some weakling, and I'm sure as hell not talking to one. Izuku cringes, but he isn't surprised. He tells her that it isn't her fault they're fighting 10 years of daily conditioning. She tells him that it's not his fault he's been fighting 10 years of daily abuse. Tears are shed. They are Midoriya's after all. Nedzu cackles, spinning in his office chair. The press had arrived at Aldra after the police, but before the arrests, so he had gotten to watch the scum get dragged out of the building and into the waiting police cars. He recorded the broadcast. Self-care is important, after all. After the effort he put into accelerating the official Department of Education investigation, he knew they would respond within the week. He hadn't anticipated the police storming Aldra Junior High less than 24 hours later. Now, Midoriya would never have to interact with those quirkist monsters or the children they groomed ever again. As a matter of fact, the young analyst now needed a new source of education. Perhaps, would they even agree to that? I suppose there is only one way to find out. A feral grin stretches across the principal's face. He grabs his desk to stop his spinning chair so he can retrieve his phone. He's lucky that Midoriya Inko works at home, or he would have to wait. She picks up on the third ring. Hello, Midoriya Inko speaking? Mrs. Midoriya. A pleasure to hear your voice again. Mr. Nedzu? Please, no honorifics. Nedzu is fine, Nedzu says. It has come to my attention that your son is currently in need of a new source of education. There is silence over the line for several seconds. Nedzu, did you destroy Izuku's school as an excuse to teach him yourself? Oh, Nedzu likes her. This must be where Izuku inherited it from. No, Mrs. Midoriya, it is merely a bittersweet coincidence. Truth be told, I called you the moment the possibility occurred to me. He leans forward in his chair. I would have destroyed Aldera for anyone, Mrs. Midoriya, but I am fond of your son and wish to see him succeed. There's another pause. Nedzu always loves when humans actually think about their options. It would save a considerable amount of trouble if they did it more often. I will have to talk with Izuku about it. He went for a walk to avoid going stir-crazy, but he should be back soon. We'll have an answer by the end of the day. That's all I can ask. Nedzu turns his attention back to Aldra. While this opening move should be decisive, he doesn't want to risk any of the bugs escaping back to their nests. And that means ensuring their defeat in court. The worst thing that could happen now is acquittal. Unlikely, highly unlikely, but not impossible. And that means researching their lawyers. About an hour later, Nedzu knows the name of every DMed fool who accepted the position to defend one of the Aldra monsters. Now that's strange. They all work for the same firm, but it isn't the firm I expected. Aldra demonstrated a disturbingly powerful legal team previously, the one that silenced every earlier inquiry as to why their students acted like entitled brats. A legal firm that specialized in defending the interests of major corporations. Why change things now? Nedzu could tell at a glance that this new firm was odd. Practically a shell company when it opened, now apparently a better legal team than Aldra had before? It takes another hour for Nedzu to trace the payments and identify the owners of the new firm. Of course, he mutters. Of course it was you. And like a particularly gruesome puzzle piece sliding into place, every oddity about Aldra comes into focus in sickening clarity. The proximity to UA had not gone unnoticed by Nedzu, though he had not found a connection until now. The illegal quirk use was worrying, but Nedzu mistook it as a symptom of the negligence and incompetence of the administration. The extreme quirk bias and quirk supremacist ideology amongst the staff had been the entire origin of the investigation. He should have known how deep it truly ran. But Nedzu failed to grasp the situation for what it was. He thought of Aldra as a school district corrupt from the top down. He was wrong. Aldra had never been a school. Aldra was an indoctrination facility. And the proof blinked back at him on his computer screen. Nedzu learned a long time ago how to hide his emotions. It was a survival skill in the lab that experimented on him day in and day out. Hiding himself behind a mask of calm serenity was now a long-ingrained habit. Hiding anger was easy. It was much harder for him to hide wrath. Yagi, Nedzu says into the phone, trembling in his fury, be it you once class's end. Is there something wrong with my paperwork? The symbol of peace asks cautiously, catching the edge to Nedzu's voice. No. I need you for a war meeting. When Nedzu sent an alert to the teachers' group chat that there would be a war meeting after school, Shoyuta felt the ice creep up his spine. Nedzu always made sure to refer to meetings as they were. In all his time there, Shoyuta had only attended a single war meeting, when a student had been attacked by a local gang. Nedzu had organized the teachers into destroying the gang so thoroughly that within 18 hours of the meeting, the entire gang had been arrested, and several were catatonic. Those had been the poor BS that Nedzu had personally dealt with. He shuddered at the memory. Shoyuta is the last to arrive, as usual. He sits down at the conference table, noting that all might is present in his skinny form. Nedzu sits at the head of the table, ears pulled back and teeth visible. Shoyuta swallows. Now that we're all here, I can give the situation report. Nedzu produces a folder and tosses it onto the table. Shoyuta catches the word detonate on the cover. The situation is as follows. The Aldra School District is here in the heart of Mustafu to make it attractive to those aiming for here at UA, the premier hero school in Japan. The district is, in fact, a scheme to produce pro-heroes who have certain beliefs, which they can then impress on the public. What beliefs are those? Yagi asks, looking troubled. Nedzu calling a war meeting meant troubling news. Beliefs. Nedzu spits, agreeable to the revived Meta Liberation Army. A moment of silence hits the room. Shoyuta studies Nedzu carefully, but he already knows what he'll find. Nedzu isn't the type to make idle threats. He called this war meeting because he is already certain. The Meta Liberation Army? A stunned Kayama asks. That quirk supremacist movement? Weren't they disbanded decades ago? Destro's army was eventually defeated, and most of its members incarcerated. Nedzu responds. Most of, says Shoyuta. Nedzu nods. Indeed, Destro in fact had a son. A second wave of shock sweeps through the staff. It was the opinion of the government at the time that the child should not bear the sins of his father. Nedzu pulls several papers out of the file he placed on the desk. As it turns out, a closer eye perhaps was warranted. The survivors of his father's army thought he should carry Destro's legacy instead. They raised Destro's son, Yatsubashi Rikiya, to lead a new meta-liberation army, one which he has raised in secret. And Aldera? Shoyuta asks. As it turns out, the legal firm representing the Aldera staff is owned by the Detnerat Company, of which Yatsubashi is the CEO. Nedzu retrieves more papers from the file. There is also a tangible financial connection between each Aldera staff member and Detnerat. In other words, every member of staff is a member of this new MLA movement. It's a rather elegant plan. If they encounter students who have a reasonable chance at heroics, they groom the child to believe in MLA values. Meanwhile, the other students, when taken out of their influence, will feel oppressed when they are suddenly forced to follow public quirk use laws, likely finding their way to the MLA proper. A hollow silence fills the room, the implications settling. Young Midoriya, Yagi breathes. Yagi's right. A quirkless child with dreams of heroism surrounded by a quirk supremacist cult? Shoyuta sighs, retroactively impressed Midoriya managed as well as he had. How many? Asks Hisashi. Nedzu grimaces. Based on what I could find tracing financial records? 40, perhaps more. Shoyuta runs a hand through his hair. Next to him, Hisashi's clenching his fists tight enough that his knuckles are completely white. Yagi coughs blood. Kayama looks sick, and Ken isn't far behind her. Were this a few years ago, I would offer to dismantle this Yatsubashi's insurrection myself, Yagi says. But I cannot say in confidence that 3 hours is enough time. 3 hours is plenty. Nedzu smiles. Sometimes Shoyuta forgets that Nedzu is not only an animal, but an animal who has experienced some of the worst humanity has to offer. This smile reminds him. After all, we only need to worry about Yatsubashi himself. His army isn't our problem. Excuse me? Ken voiced. We are heroes, Ken, not soldiers. We do not fight in wars, Nedzu responds, his grin widening. We have a perfectly good military for that. When Nedzu presented his case to the government, he almost immediately received support from the Ministry of Intelligence to identify MLA members, a task he took to with gusto. Names, addresses, ages, blood type. Nedzu found as much as he could on as many operatives as he could find. The operation was straightforward enough. Strike teams, with 2 heroes as backup as a precaution, would strike at Meta Liberation Army sympathizers across Japan in preparation for a final raid on Yatsubashi himself. Nemuri stands next to Kan, both in costume. Across the street, the Japanese military ambushes a small pack of MLA forces attempting to reach the airport on foot. Nedzu was right. They didn't even need us. Ken laughs, watching the soldiers subdue the last of the Meta Liberation soldiers as they attempted to flee down the street. Probably for the best that way. Heroes are public servants. Using us in armed conflict would set a dangerous precedent, Nemuri replies. That might be an interesting topic of discussion for my art history classes. True enough. Ken turns. I just hope everything goes this smoothly. He's interrupted when a small figure stumbles out of the alleyway behind them. Nemuri and Ken ready themselves. She's young, Nemuri notices first. Her hair is disheveled, her eyes unfocused, her steps uneven. She teeters. Blood man, she murmurs, barely audible. Next to her, Nemuri sees Kan's eyes widen. Midnight, he uses her hero name, something is happening. Use your quirk. If the command came from a hero who wasn't her co-worker, Nemuri might have questioned it. But she knew Kansas. She steps forward, ignoring the whispered, pretty lady, from the girl and lets her quirk flow from her palm. The girl's unfocused eyes glaze over, and she slumps into Nemuri's arms. She can tell the girl is too light. Who is she? She turns to her co-worker. Ken looks troubled. Not Emilet. I'll give you the details at the hospital. He turns to the soldiers, who are loading the MLA into an armored car. Can you guys finish up here? Destro straightens his jacket. Over the past 48 hours, his Meta Liberation Army has been besieged. And for the life of him, he has no idea who is responsible. MLA cells around Japan suddenly went dark. Reports from his supporters in executive positions stopped. Some of his more high-profile allies dropped off the map. His pro-hero supporters had been called away by the HPSC, then vanished. Someone had hit him hard and they hit him fast. Anyone sent to investigate never returned. Even Tomoyasu had vanished when he insisted on locating Hanabata. Too subtle for the Yakuza. Too quiet for the heroes. Too large-scale for a villain organization to go undetected. Government? Kazuki, what's our status? He asks. Of his top brass, only he and Kazuki remained. The two of them had gone to ground at the central tower of Daika City, along with 5,000 soldiers. They were now one of a handful of Meta Liberation Army forces he could account for. We lost communications with another cell, the Hosu branch. No response since. She bites her thumb. What could possibly be happening out there? What indeed, Redestro mutters. The thought that his dear comrades may be lost brings tears to his eye. A shrill alarm blares throughout the tower. His soldiers whirl, looking to identify the source of the commotion. Sir. Kazuki calls, leaning close at her computer screen. We have visual. Who is it? It's Kazuki's blue skin pales. It's the Japanese military, and with them is Endeavor and All Might. Enji scoffs, backhanding another so-called Meta Liberation soldier. He had been called out to deal with this rabble? Shudo could easily have handled a force this pathetic. Another group charges out from the central tower. Most of them fall to the soldiers' gunfire. Allegedly, the guns weren't lethal, some prototype being developed as riot equipment. In practice, these whelps were being used as live-fire test dummies. He doesn't particularly care. He never saw the point of letting a villain live to strike again. Another way he did a better job than that blonde oaf beside him. Take care of the fodder, he barks to All Might. I'll push through and take Yatsubashi. Endeavor, wait, the almighty idiot bellows, but Enji ignores him. He runs ahead, wreathing his right hand in flames. Once he's close enough to the approaching force, he slams his fist into the ground. Raging assault hell minefield. The ground erupts from underneath the Meta Liberation soldiers. Smirks. With no time to evade, the enemies fly backwards from the blast. His opening created, Enji rushes forward, slamming a burning fist against the occasional enemy. Soon he finds himself at the base of the central tower. Standing just outside is his target, Yatsubashi Rikiya. The CEO glares at Enji, but he refuses to be cowed by a mere insect. It's time I show that fool what a real hero looks like, Enji says, sliding into a battle stance. With your defeat, I begin the liberation of Japan. Yatsubashi strides forward, loosening his tie. Enji shifts his weight, concentrating the flames on his hand. Flash fire fist jet burn. He punches forward, a burst of heat blasting forward and engulfing Yatsubashi. Enji keeps the fire going. Underestimating the leader of the revived Meta Liberation Army could get him killed. The seconds tick by, the roaring heat in front of him pressing his limits. Enji pants. Forcing a super move so far immediately after using his hell minefield pushed him further than he'd expected. No matter. He'd already won. The flames flicker and die, and Enji grins, expecting to see the downed form of his opponent. Instead, he sees a monster. A black, hulking figure looking down his nose at him. 80% liberation. This is 80% of my stress made into physical power, Endeavor. Isn't it glorious? This is my meta ability. The monster swipes an arm at Enji, and he barely pulls himself out of the way. Physical force isn't going to slow this thing down. He launches dozens of small fire blasts at the transformed Yatsubashi. The muscle-bound man winces and the fire burns through his clothes, but Enji can tell the man's quirk hasn't increased, only his offense. Probably resists just about everything like that. Enji ignites his flames again, but before he can react, a wave of flashing black overwhelms him. Stress output burden. The wave smashes into Enji, launching him back. He slams into the ground and bounces, rolling further and further away. His careening body smashes straight through wall after wall. He tries to use his fire as propulsion to stop himself, but as out of control as he is, It takes his all just to slow down. Finally, he tumbles to a stop against a wall, deep inside some office building. NG struggles, pushing himself to his feet. But his body refuses and he collapses once more. The last thing he sees before fading to black is the rebar sticking through his side. Izuku stares at the television, dumbstruck. His mother, sitting on the couch beside him, pulls him close with a hiccuping sob. A news helicopter flies over Daika City, broadcasting live footage of the battle raging. A reporter's voiceover narrates the video. It's been 10 minutes since All Might and Endeavor arrived in Daika City backed by the Japanese military. There is still no word as to what led the military to call in hero reinforcements, but we have confirmed reports that over the past 2 days, Japanese military forces have launched raids on locations around Japan. On screen, about a dozen people rush out of the tower at the heart of Daika, followed by a dozen more, charging straight towards the heroes and soldiers. The newscaster tries to remain neutral as she watches the newcomers unleash their quirks against the joint forces, but when the soldiers return fire she breaks. And the soldiers are responding with, "Oh God." She trails off as the tower's defenders fall. Endeavor abandons his military escort and All Might, charging through the crowd to where? "Isn't that the CEO of that lifestyle support company?" his mother asks. Izuku nods, recognizing him from commercials. Detnerat. Endeavor's flashfire fist does absolutely nothing as the spindly suited man swells and grows with muscle. And Izuku watches, horrified, as he somehow blasts Endeavor through 2 city blocks, a burning trail in his wake. Toshinori smacks another goon into a wall, eyeing him long enough to know he won't get back up. The ground rumbles, and he looks up in time to see a massive wave of black energy send Endeavor flying. From the corner of his eye, Toshinori sees the soldiers faltering behind him. There's a perfect pause, a moment of calm on the battlefield as everyone gawks. Then a cheer carries on the wind from the Meta Liberation Forces. "Friends and comrades." The crowd cheers again, and Toshinori knows the voice. It's been featured in commercials for years now. "Yatsubashi," Toshinori snarls. Forward steps a giant, bound in dark muscle. Toshinori can barely recognize the man he is here to defeat. "We are on the back foot now, yes. But now, your Grand Commander Redestro has taken to the field himself. Do not lose heart, for this is the era of the Meta Liberation Army. In the name of my father and his ideals, our true freedom is at hand." "Not so," Toshinori roars. "Your freedom comes at the price of millions of children around Japan, discarded and destroyed because they have no value to your philosophy." He still sees young Midoriya wailing on a rooftop whenever he closes his eyes. Toshinori takes a step forward, bustling with energy. "What would you know about that?" Yatsubashi snarls. "Have you not heard of Aldera, fiend?" All Might calls. Yatsubashi's giant form stiffens. "You claim to be for the freedom of quirks, and yet your followers allowed, no, encouraged the abuse of a child because he wasn't born to your standards. Your creed is nothing more than an excuse to further your own power. No child will ever be hurt that way again." The fact an entire school district neglected their duty of care in favor of this man fills Toshinori with incandescent rage. He takes another step, and the Meta Liberation soldiers step back. "The tyranny of your so-called true freedom will never come to pass." "Why?" Toshinori launches himself forward, rearing back his fist as the goons between the 2 titans scramble out of the way. "Because I am here." Izuku can't look away, can't even blink as on the television in front of him All Might trades blows with a towering mass of muscle. Does he have enough time? Izuku swallows. All of Japan is watching, but only he knows about that wound that's steadily draining All Might's strength. "Come on, All Might," he mumbles. "I'll make tea," his mother declares, slipping off the couch and into the kitchen. The television in the hospital lobby plays the news, and Nemuri is captivated. In her time as a pro-hero, she has never seen a villain who could meet All Might punch for punch. The battle that gave him that injury on his side, was it like this? She doesn't even notice can come up behind her until he places a hand on her shoulder. "Our new co-worker's really giving it his all," he says quietly. Nemuri can only nod. Deep underground, a man with no eyes listens as his doctor watches the news. It's been a long time since One for All has fought against an organized front, he muses. It's almost nostalgic for the battles he waged against my allies in the years leading up to our duel. Maybe he'll take a blow to the other side, his doctor suggests. Symmetry and all that. All for One laughs at the imagery. Katsuki scowls. The reporter, the extras on the field, even his parents are acting like this is some big deal. Yeah, Big Nose down there has some raw strength, but All Might is the best. Until I surpass him. All Might would never lose to an extra like that. This fight is just a way to showcase how DMN's strong Katsuki is gonna be someday. At least he will enjoy watching the villain getting smashed into next week. Nedzu sits in his office, counting the seconds as the news plays on his computer. Since All Might assumed his muscle form and joined the operation, 6,080 seconds have passed. He's just over his halfway point. Defeating Yatsubashi in time won't be an issue, but will he have enough time for the cleanup? He'll have to call Yagi after the battle and remind him not to go overboard. Both know the wild pussycats are on standby for once the fighting is over. Yagi can leave things to them. But will he? That man can be too stubborn for his own good. He sips his tea. Punch for punch, hit for hit, blow for blow, Yatsubashi is there. Their fists collide with every strike, shockwaves radiating from the two combatants. You would truly go so far for one quirkless? Yatsubashi howls over the clashing. Always. I'm sick of watching heroes like you be praised for your meta abilities when my army is ostracized for the same. Yatsubashi screams, his form increasing still. Stress, 100%. The man's blows come down harder and harder, and Toshinori puts everything he has into intercepting them. Each strike forces him back, his feet sinking through the street. The shock reverberates through his bones. Toshinori grits his teeth, smacking another punch away. Yatsubashi sneers, clutching both fists together and bringing them down on Toshinori's back. He coughs out spittle, barely blocking the follow-up hit to the chest. Toshinori flies back a good 5 meters, skidding against the ground. You called this stress, 100%, correct? Toshinori says. This is you at your strongest then? It is indeed. Behold, the full might of the Meta Liberation Army's Grand Commander. So that punch just now, Toshinori surreptitiously wipes the blood from his chin, that was the best you have? Toshinori glares, signature grin unwavering. Yatsubashi gawks, instinctively taking a step back. Seeing his moment, Toshinori charges once more, landing a clean hit into Yatsubashi's side. The Grand Commander howls but braces himself before he can be knocked back. Toshinori swings a left hook, but Yatsubashi is already moving to block it. Once more they are matched blow for blow. Black energy swirls up from both of Yatsubashi's oversized fists and Toshinori recognizes the attack that launched Endeavor. He's planning on ending this in the next hit. Stress output burden. Yatsubashi yells, swinging his arms forward in a wide arc, the black energy trailing. My opening. Texas smash. Toshinori surges a right hook straight into Yatsubashi's stomach. Wind roars out, through Yatsubashi and beyond into the Daika Central Tower. The twin black waves erupt out in a V shape, leveling building after building. Skyscrapers fall like chopped trees. Smoke, dust, and debris fog the streets. The silence is heard across Japan. Slowly, the breeze lifts the clouds of dirt. Yatsubashi Rikiya is pressed into a crater in the wall of the Daika Central Tower. Slowly he slips and falls to the ground. Unconscious. And All Might is still standing. He raises a single fist and laughs, the sound echoing across Daika City. The soldiers raise their guns and cheer. The Meta Liberation Forces, those that are still standing, that is, see their leader defeated and turn tail. Toshinori lets them. After all, there are only so many ways in and out of Daika. Their own defenses now trap. Redestro. How dare you hurt him? Toshinori whirls in time to see a blue-skinned woman fling dozens of graveled rocks at him. He exerted himself more than he would have liked against Yatsubashi. If he dodges, he could lower his time limit again. Caught unaware as he was, amateur mistake, Toshinori, he can't deflect in time. Does he risk the damage? To Toshinori, it's as though everything slows to a crawl. The flying rocks expand, glowing white-hot with heat. Exploding. If he moves, they could go behind him and hit the soldiers, but if he takes it the damage will be extensive. I should have moved sooner. I can't stop them in time. Then, red beams rush past Toshinori from off to his side, enveloping the detonating rocks and beyond. The beams dance, expand, and dissipate, leaving no trace of the attack as Daika's central tower crumples into countless burning pieces. The blue-skinned MLA member sinks to her knees, and Toshinori sees smoking burnt lines on her skin. Those beams kissed her but deliberately avoided killing her. All might, you idiot, Endeavor pants, limping towards him, a raised hand still smoking from his hell spider, other hand over where a reinforced metal bar pierces his side. Never let your guard down on the battlefield. Endeavor! Toshinori dashes over to him, offering a shoulder to support him. Should you be moving like that? He doesn't expect Endeavor to accept. Toshinori knows the man is far too proud, but the flame hero relents, slinging an arm over All Might's neck. Soldiers rush past to apprehend the blue-skinned woman and any MLA fighters still moving. That wave attack of his wasn't enough to really hurt me, but it blasted me back a fair bit. He got lucky I hit this rebar, or I'd have been up again in a second. Toshinori gives a relieved sigh. Endeavor is obsessed with strength, but he isn't stupid enough to fight past serious injury unless necessary. And he knows not to undersell damage to healers. Dead men rarely place high on the hero billboard chart. If he says he's all right, Toshinori believes him. Toshinori gives one last look at the ruins of Daika City. The grave of Destro's ideals. The Meta-Liberation Army is no more. As Toshinori helps Endeavor to the medical evac point, Nedzu's voice pipes up in his earpiece. Excellent work, Yagi. Remember, there are other heroes who can help with the evacuation. You still have just over an hour of time. Be careful with how much of it you use. Toshinori can't see Nedzu's grin, but he knows it's there. You'll likely be called for the press statement on what happened out there. You should rest while you can. Toshinori groans. Izuku sips his tea carefully, his hands trembling. His mother pulls him into a hug, and he leans into it. He did that for me, Mom, he whispers. He did. You're worth saving. Izuku cries. Press conferences and news releases are definitely Toshinori's least favorite parts of the job. His entire hero persona is based around the old adage. Actions speak louder than words. He leaps around the city, defeats the villains, saves the people, retrieves the cat from the tree or what have you, and leads away again, all with his signature smile. His presence makes people feel safer. He's inspiring and hope-inducing. He is the symbol of peace. He is supposed to be out there, reassuring the public with just a passing glance of his trademark red, white, blue, and gold costume. Instead, he is sitting in a folding chair at a cloth-covered table, wearing a suit, waiting for the reporters to take their seats. Nedzu expertly announced before the media could begin wild speculation that All Might and himself would be discussing the Daika City battle of several hours ago at the UA Conference Center. He understands. The Daika City battle was the first time that heroes had officially worked alongside the Japanese military. The Heroics Public Safety Commission had made it very clear early in its inception that heroes were public servants, not soldiers. Technically, heroes couldn't even make arrests, merely detain villains for the police. For him, the number one hero, the symbol of peace, to stand side by side with a platoon of soldiers? It was bound to turn some heads. I will discuss the investigation into Aldra and how we uncovered the connection between the so-called school district with the revived Meta-Liberation Army, Nedzu says from the chair to his left. You focus on damage control for being involved in a military operation. Would you like any last-minute pointers? No thank you, Toshinori shakes his head. I have a pretty good idea already of what I want to say. He coughs blood into his hand. He's glad Nedzu reminded him that this was coming. He still has about 45 minutes left, but if the principal hadn't called him after the battle, Toshinori is sure he would have used it pulling people out of the rubble. I will be sure to emphasize the uniqueness of this situation. Soon after, the microphones are on and the cameras are rolling. Nedzu pulls his mounted mic closer. As I have stated, this conference is to discuss the events broadcast earlier today. Specifically, the Japanese military employing all might and endeavor in a combat zone, as well as the nature of the threat they faced. Nedzu pauses. I believe, in this case, it makes the most sense to begin from the end. Yatsubashi Rikiya, CEO of the Detonarat Company, is in fact secretly the Grand Commander of a new meta-liberation army. Predictably, the assembled members of the press explode, demanding answers. After a few seconds, Nedzu taps the mic, silencing them. As you are well aware, the original meta-liberation army, led by Destro, engaged the Japanese government in armed conflict before their ultimate defeat. As such, we could not treat the new MLA as a simple villain organization, and so we contacted the military. Toshinori sees his cue and takes it. As Nedzu said, Yatsubashi could not be treated as any ordinary villain. During our briefing, it was speculated that his forces numbered above 40,000 people. Toshinori lets that sink in. Personally, I am uncomfortable with heroes and military being deployed as though we are the same. I do not wish to see villains apprehended by soldiers any more than you. However, heroes alone could not face the threat presented by the new MLA alone, especially when we uncovered several pro-heroes had ties to their group. As such, the official statement of the HPSC is this: heroes can be employed in military operations as support only if it is known that an enemy combatant would be classified as a villain were it not for their supporters, forces, or resources necessitating the involvement of the military. Heroes cannot be deployed beyond the borders of Japan in military operations, even if the above condition is met. I would like to add that the HPSC are aware of the precedent that could be set by allowing heroes into combat zones, and they assure me they will personally look over any future incident to determine whether hero involvement is necessary, Nedzu says. Nedzu talks some more about the legislation being drafted, no doubt at that very moment, to ensure the military would be unable to abuse hero involvement. Toshinori speaks more about the philosophy of using heroes in military operations. Eventually, they begin taking questions from the press. How did you discover Yatsubashi's connection to the MLA? One asks. I am sure you are familiar with the incredibly recent Aldra scandal, Nedzu begins. As one of the investigators on that case, I sought to ensure that each and every person involved be brought to justice. As such, I performed a background check of the legal defense of the district faculty. Strangely, every one of the faculty had a legal defense from the same firm. Even more peculiar is that the Aldra district previously made use of a different legal firm entirely. Attempting to determine the reason, I dug deeper into both these firms and uncovered financial records demonstrably proving the revival of the Meta-Liberation Army. Both firms have, of course, since been arrested. Are you saying that the Aldra schools were part of the MLA? I am. The reporters explode once more. Toshinori silences them and explains that since his part of this conference is over, he will be leaving the rest to Nedzu. He's running short on time for the day, which he knows Nedzu knows. He also knows Nedzu will find a way to get back at him for leaving him to answer the press alone, even if Toshinori was not involved in the Aldra case. 3 weeks into his third and final year at junior high, and the place is shut down because his teachers are all apparently insurrectionists. Izuku stares at the wall above the television, numb. Everything he's ever been through. It was all because his teachers were part of an extremist quirk supremacist group? Being born quirkless wasn't bad enough luck. He had to live by the one school district in Japan being run by terrorists. Perfect. Well, probably the only one. I know the Ministry of Education wants to double-check, just to be sure. Now, Izuku is just floating. His whole life, apparently, was an elaborate lie. Propaganda. His first, best friend betrayed him, made his life a living hell for 10 years because the Meta-Liberation Army wanted to promote some idiotic, social Darwinist bullshit. His mother places a cup of tea on the table in front of him, bless her. She starts, and Izuku already sees tears in her eyes. What happened to you? What your classmates and teachers did? That wasn't your fault, Izuku. You did nothing wrong. I'm sorry you suffered in silence for so long. He pulls her into a hug. I love you, Mom. I love you too, Sunshine. And Mom. I'm going to be a hero. I know, Sunshine. A cult school. IFNG cult school. Katsuki had been attending a cult school his entire life. The BS. He knew his teachers were butt kissers, but he thought they all SED up to him because they knew he was going to be the best one day. Not because they wanted him to play second fiddle to their shitty cult leader. They never thought I could be the best. They wanted me as number 2 to that big-nosed F-. Damn it. He restrains himself to small pops instead of the roaring blasts he wants to let out. His parents could afford to replace anything he burnt, but he'd rather they didn't have another excuse to look disappointed at him. So would he hurt Deku? The BSTR didn't know his place, under Katsuki's heel. Arrogant prick, meeting up with heroes behind Katsuki's back and not telling him. Laughing behind his back. So what if he hurt him? The little sheet kept going on about being a hero. If he was serious, he should be able to take at least this much. Katsuki scoffs. Of course Deku wasn't serious. He just said that to look down on him. Saying he didn't need a quirk to do what Katsuki could. Couldn't take the heat, so he whined until they shut down the FING school. How pathetic. He ignores the memory of Auntie Inko looking at him with such coldness in her eyes the evening Aldera closed. He ignores the memory of how his mother, a loud, boisterous woman, sobbed quietly when Auntie Inko told her what he'd done, and he didn't deny it. He ignores the memory of his gentle father trembling in anger. Katsuki takes a deep breath. Deku doesn't matter. Once he gets into UA, he'll never see the BSTRD again. After all, those cult BSTRDs were right about one thing. Bakugo Katsuki was going to be the best. Such a shame, the doctor says, turning off the television. They had a rather sizable force we could have used. And they didn't even kill most of them. At least if they were dead, I could use their corpses as pneuma bases. Indeed, we have lost quite a powerful potential ally, All for One says. But fret not. Not all of Yatsubashi's forces were lost. They have gone to ground now, but if we are patient, I am sure they will. Come to us. Shigaraki is in need of quality supporters. Behind his respirator, All for One grins ear to ear. And besides, Endeavor was just humiliated live on national television. Perhaps if we are lucky, his wounded pride and ambition will drive him to further our goals on his own. That fight reminded me, Toshinori starts, that I need to be preparing a successor soon. Nedzu looks up from his tea. The two of them are alone in his office, sometime after the conference ended. You struggled that much? He says. You hid it well. Toshinori shakes his head. It wasn't Yatsubashi. It was that woman. In my prime, that attack of hers would have been nothing to me. Today it could have killed me. He meets the principal's eyes. I need to offer one for all to young Midoriya. Nedzu sips his tea slowly, then pauses, slowly rotating the cup. Not just yet, Yagi, he says. Midoriya has just learned that his entire life was a carefully constructed lie. Give him time to process. Toshinori slumps, sighing. Nedzu is right, of course. I'll give him until June then. Predictably, the announcement that not only had the Meta Liberation Army revived, but that All Might and Endeavor had worked alongside the Japanese military, took the internet by storm. The Aldera scandal went from a localized Mustafu event to international news overnight. On social media, debates over the legality and justice of the joint hero military raid run rampant. Talk shows call in experts to discuss the Hero Public Safety Commission's public statement regarding the use of heroes in armed conflict. Online essays, video or otherwise, sprout like weeds and quickly begin referencing or countering other essays. The Ministry of Education quickly announced they would be going through every school in Japan with a fine-tooth comb. If they missed Aldera, no one wants to speculate what else they could have missed over the years. Izuku expects that will take quite a bit longer than the Aldera investigation, now that Nedzu's case is officially resolved and he's resumed his normal duties. What Izuku hadn't expected was the communities of people with weak or stereotypically villainous quirks to emerge online praising the complete collapse of the Meta Liberation Army. Izuku even sees some posts from people who listed themselves as quirkless on their profiles. They're all talking about throwing an actual massive party celebrating the MLA's defeat. Only a few days after the brawl between All Might and the leader of the army, and hashtag MLA's over party leads the trending section of every major social media site. Ms. Nightlight at Joyato Hikari. So my moms and I cleared a pretty decent space on Takoba Beach. Anyone in Mustafu want to swing by May 31st at sundown? We've got snacks hashtag MS over party. Can't see me at Hagakure Toru. Replying to at Joyato Hikari. I'll see you there but you won't see me. Hashtag MS over party. Ms. Nightlight at Joyato Hikari. Replying to at Hagakure Toru. Ominous. I like it. Hashtag MS over party. Can't see me. At Hagakure Toru. Replying to at Joyato Hikari. I'll give you a hint. My profile pic is a selfie hashtag MLA's over party. I'm melting at Ashidomina. Replying to at Joyato Hikari. Oh yeah. I haven't been to a party in forever. Hashtag MS over party. Mad scientist at Hatsume. Replying to at Joyato Hikari. Ha 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 ha. Hashtag MS over party. And so it went. Some digging shows that other cities have similar impromptu celebrations planned online. Izuku knows Kaken won't be caught dead somewhere where the kinds of people he calls extras are hanging out, so he doesn't need to worry about that. May 31st, huh? That's a month away. And what a wild April he's had. A week of break from his hell school between second and third year, Kaken's advice and subsequent villain attack. Meeting All Might, then Nedzu and Eraserhead. Then his school got closed because everyone working there was apparently a terrorist, ending with Endeavor getting ragdolled on live TV apparently. He'll be out of action for a whole month and All Might beating up a CEO. Eat the rich. He'll talk to him mom about going to the Takoba Beach party later. Right now, he has to go see Nedzu and keep up with his junior high work. It's strange, being the only middle school student learning at UA. Occasionally one of the high school students stop and ask him if he's supposed to be here. Izuku does look his age. He ends up explaining that he meets with Nedzu daily to 5 different students on his way to the office, dissolving into a stuttering mess every time. Even so, Izuku wouldn't trade this opportunity to learn from Nedzu for the world. Good morning, Midoriya. Nedzu says, opening his office door just before Izuku can knock. Izuku snorts, used to the principal's habits by now. Good morning, sir. What are we doing today? He slides into his chair, a cup of steaming tea already on the desk for him. Nedzu turns his monitor so Izuku can see it. Quirk analysis, he cheers. Izuku brightens. This is what got him this opportunity in the first place. I'll be showing some archived footage of the sports festival, and I want you to write down as much as you can about the different quirks you see. The principal pulls some blank paper from a drawer and hands it to Izuku. Ready? Ready. Nedzu taps his spacebar and the video plays. Izuku recognizes the event as a race, one of the mass elimination events. From the chaos that breaks out instantly, Izuku can see quirk use on other competitors was allowed. His eyes dart between the various competitors. The student in first has a flying quirk? No, he's got something under his arms. He's carrying himself. Telekinesis? Control of a specific material? That student, the one who keeps throwing rocks, it looks like trajectory manipulation, but he keeps hesitating. Trajectory prediction? That girl, anyone she touches freezes over. Where does the ice come from? The water in the air, or her own body? Izuku spots movement ahead of the crowd. His eyes snap ahead, but he can't see anyone, except there. A ripple in the air, like heat. Too noticeable for invisibility. Camouflage? Izuku continues voicing his observations like that for the rest of the video. When the final contestant, someone with gills, crosses the line, Nedzu stops the video. Most impressive, Midoriya. I only noticed a few quirks you were wrong about. That student you thought had a weak telepathy quirk in fact possesses a psychometry quirk, among a handful of other similar instances. Of course, by the entrance exam I'll have you analyzing faster and more accurately. Nedzu claps. Now, how would you fight villains who use the quirks you've described? Izuku sets a thumb to the corner of his mouth. The easiest way to beat any of them is with an ambush. If I don't give them a chance to use their quirks, they don't matter. If I was forced into a direct fight, that would change things. The students with contact-based quirks, I'd target their hands. The metal manipulator, I'd try and rust or destroy the metal they brought with them. Maybe use electromagnets? The one who can predict how things move could be tricky. If I ambushed him from range, his quirk might alert him, so I'd need to attack from close range, or overwhelm him so it doesn't matter where he dodges. Izuku continues rattling off ways to counter the various quirks Nedzu displayed for him while the principal himself nodded along. I am sure you have noticed I am a firm believer in hand-on experience, Nedzu says when Izuku finishes. So, now that you're warmed up, for your next assignment you will be solving a cold case. Izuku sputters while Nedzu laughs, pulling a large manila folder out from a desk drawer. Not a real cold case, of course. I have written up for you a simulated unsolved crime based on an actual incident that was recently resolved. He slides the folder to Izuku, who opens it cautiously. Ready? Ready. Begin. You won't hear those vultures in the media discussing it, but one of the most important aspects of heroics is mobility, Mr. Aizawa says, leading Izuku towards ground beta, where Izuku sees modern buildings rise above the outer wall. If you can't reach people in danger in time, you'll never be able to save them. Mr. Aizawa swipes his faculty ID on the scanner next to the massive gate. The door to the training ground swings wide, and Izuku sees just how large the simulated urban environment truly is. Whole city blocks stretch into the distance, office buildings, apartments, and skyscrapers lining the streets. For how detailed the buildings are, it's empty for a city. No buses or bikes or pedestrians. There aren't many quirks well suited to covering long distances quickly, Mr. Aizawa continues as Izuku follows him through the gate and into the grounds. Most heroes have to find some other way to compensate. I use a mixture of parkour and my capture scarf. So, you're going to be teaching me parkour? First, I'll be demonstrating. I won't have an amateur running around an actual city until you have the basics down. Aizawa runs at a wall, effortlessly stepping up the flat surface until he can reach a handhold and pull himself up. He springs upward to another handhold and again, jamming his scarf into the wall when he needs to, until he's on the building's roof. Parkour, Mr. Aizawa says, lowering himself back down with his capture scarf, is originally based on military obstacle course training before it expanded into a wider skill set. It is a way of seeing your environment in a different way and interacting with it to move from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. I don't teach free running here. Fancy flips look great on your own time, but they'll get you killed in the field. Mr. Aizawa turns, jerking his head, and Izuku follows. I've got some training obstacles set up around the corner. We'll get you learning the fundamentals, and once you've got those down, then we'll see if you can scale a building. Izuku nods, eyes burning with excitement. He can't keep the smile off his face. I'm home. Izuku calls into the apartment. He's tired and aching but beaming. Welcome back, Izuku, his mother calls. Izuku sets his bag down as she shuffles into the living room and sweeps him into a hug. Izuku helps set the kitchen table for dinner, idly chatting with his mother about their days. Once they're both eating, he brings up the post he saw online. At Takoba Beach, his mother asks, "Isn't that a dump?" The poster said that they cleared a section of it for this. Izuku says, "I'll have to swing by and take a look sometime. If it looks safe, then we can go." She smiles softly at him. "I want to celebrate too, you know. No one hurts my kid and gets away with it." The day after, she tells him she saw people expanding the clear area. Apparently, seeing members of the community making progress, combined with needing space for the party, inspired some locals to help out. Izuku marks the end of the month on his calendar. Aizawa, as usual, is the last to arrive. Nedzu can't complain too much this time. After all, he's only called a staff meeting and not another war meeting. Once the underground hero has taken his seat, Nedzu begins. As you know, the Ministry of Education is currently reviewing schools across Japan for potential abuse and negligence. We need to prepare ourselves for the possibility that many children will suddenly find themselves in need of a replacement source of education. Given the tools and support to succeed, these overlooked children may flourish. As we are both a private school and played a not insignificant part in encouraging this nationwide review, I cannot help but feel responsible for the displaced students. It's unfortunate, Yagi says, but for the most part all we can do is suggest they transfer to different districts or attend online schooling. Nedzu wouldn't have called us here if that's all, Majima replies. No, the rat's planning something. Izawa. And I get the feeling I'm about to regret not having a class of my own. Nedzu's mouth curls into a grin. Something like that, Aizawa? He pulls a file out from his jacket and places it on the table. I'm asking for you to review my plans to institute a temporary new class for students who may have attended UA had they better opportunities. Class C. How will it work? Nomuri asks. A remedial cram course, says the principal. Starting in our second term, Class Z will be an intensive course meant to ensure the students are up to speed with their yearmates. Course Z will cover fundamentals of all 4 of our courses, and the students will transfer to one of those branches for their second year. Ken looks up, his eyes distant. I may have a recommendation for a student, he says. Her school didn't necessarily mistreat her, but they missed her parents forcing her to suppress her quirk. I must have misheard you, Ken, Nedzu says, voice razor-sharp and cold as ice. Or did you actually tell me that in this day and age someone still practices quirk suppression therapy? Not anymore, they don't, Ken spits. You know how I keep an ear to the ground for quirks like mine? Try to keep an eye on villainous quirk discrimination. Nedzu gestures for him to continue. About 6 weeks ago, less than an hour after her middle school graduation, a girl forced to suppress her quirk due to it giving her a blood fascination reached her limit. She ended up attacking another student, seriously injuring him. She disappeared immediately afterwards. When interviewed, her parents claimed that she was a demon child who was born evil. Nedzu forces his fur back down before anyone can see him bristling. Where is she now? I assume the police are looking for her. Well, Ken says. When Nomuri and I were helping with the MLA raids, she found us. I had Nomuri sedate her, and she's currently in the hero ward of a private hospital, officially under my supervision. Nomuri nods, concern etched all over her face. She was so light, she mutters. Tell me everything, Nedzu says. All right, Ken begins. Her name is Toga Himiko, and she's 15 years old. The first thing Himiko noticed when she came to was how clear her mind was. She vaguely remembered the graduation ceremony, but her head had been killing her for months by then, and everything after that is fogged over. She thinks she remembers Saito covered in blood somehow. Then just flashes of blurry city streets. The last thing she remembered was the red man who smelled like blood and the pretty woman he was with. She wondered if they were all right. If her head was clear, that meant she must have taken blood again, and she doubted it was a bird this time. Then she noticed she was lying in a bed. Not a great bed, but better than wherever she'd been before, she was sure. There's something beeping off to her side. Everything smelled like the nurse's office. Himiko looked around properly. She was in a hospital. A hospital. She must have been caught. Now they were gonna throw her in jail forever. Like her parents said she deserved. That's fine. She was tired of pretending to be like other people. She can live a normal life on her own, thank you very much. She reached for the 4 in her arm when the door opened. I wouldn't touch those, said the man in red as a doctor followed him into the room. You're still pretty malnourished. You need those. So, whoever she fed on wasn't that guy then. Himiko moved her hand away from the tubes. Now that the fog in her head has let up, she recognized his outfit as a hero costume. She wasn't going anywhere while he's watching her. Oh Himiko, did you attack a pro hero? Monster, freak, and every other snide remark her parents ever made bounced around Himiko's skull. This is it, she's going to jail. No, Tartarus. Are you feeling better? The hero asked. What a stupid question. It doesn't matter how she feels. Apparently, the hero could see some of that in her face because he sighs. I should introduce myself. I'm Kensekijiro, the pro hero Vlad King. He took a seat in the chair beside Himiko's bed. My quirk is called blood control. Himiko's eyes widened. That's why he smelled like blood. I got a lot of grief from my quirk growing up. Now that I'm a hero, I try and find kids who are going through what I went through so I can help them." Himiko couldn't help it. She scoffed. Mr. Kan raised an eyebrow. "No one wants to help me," Himiko explained quietly. "I want blood. I want other people's blood. I want to see people covered in their blood. I don't want to be helped. I don't want to be normal. I'm sick of pretending." Silence hung in the air between them. "Normal is pretty subjective," Mr. Kan said at last. "That's not what Himiko expected. And you never got a chance to find your normal." "What?" She'd been normal since her quirk came in and her parents told her how to act, to behave. "You've been forcibly suppressing your own quirk and the parts of your biology it affects," Mr. Kan said. "That method of quirk control was outlawed decades ago. It just makes things worse. Your urges, for instance. They're probably more extreme because you've been denying them." "What?" Mr. Kan wasn't serious, was he? Then, just when Himiko was certain her day couldn't get stranger, the doctor produced a vial of blood and handed it to her. "Drink slowly," the doctor said. "Too fast and you'll end up throwing it up again." They actually wanted her to drink blood? No, this had to be a trick, and then they would call her a demon child and throw her away. But that blood did look tasty. And if they were going to lock her up anyway, what's the harm? Himiko took the vial and sipped it slowly, keeping her eyes on the hero and the doctor. "Good," the doctor said. "We'll be giving you some blood with every meal for the time being. Once you're no longer starved of the stuff, we'll slow down your intake to once a day. I'll look into getting you some blood-based foods as well." Blood-based foods? Himiko hadn't heard of those. The doctor nodded. "There are a handful of options for people who need to regularly consume blood for their quirk. The most popular is protein bars made with blood." But Himiko tried to articulate the storm she's feeling, how everything that's happened since she woke up hadn't made sense. "Toga," the hero said, "I had your parents arrested." She gasped. "Like I said, forcing someone to suppress their quirk is illegal, and just based on how they talked about you I could tell they weren't good parents to you." He slowly moved his hand onto her shoulder, telegraphing his movements. She managed not to flinch, but just barely. "What they did to you was wrong, and me and the doctors here do care about you. We aren't going to throw you away because of your quirk." Himiko doesn't say anything. She never dreamed something like this would happen to her. That was 2 days ago. She's still in the hospital, but the doctor says she's improving rapidly. Apparently, in addition to needing blood, she gets a bunch of nutrients from it. The doctors are hopeful she'll be discharged in a week or two. Ken has visited her once a day as well. She'd be more surprised if he hadn't told her about his quirk, or if he hadn't let her look him up on his second visit and learned he was called the Blood Hero. Himiko hears a soft knock at her door and looks up from the old Western cartoons playing on the television. Ken walks in with a suit-wearing Wolverine, perched on his shoulder. "Hello again, Toga," Ken says, and Himiko winces. Looking back on how her parents treated her and hearing they were arrested for it put a bad taste in her mouth. "Just Himiko." Ken nods. "I have someone who wanted to speak to you." He gestures to the weasel, who hopped down onto the bed. "Am I an otter, a mink, or a marten? It doesn't matter. What's important is that I'm the principal of UA High School." "That's it." "It's a pleasure to meet you, Himiko." She stared at the talking animal for several seconds before realizing he is waiting for a response. "UA High? The hero school? We teach other courses too, but yes, that is what we are primarily known for." The animal chuckles. "You wanted to meet? With me?" "Indeed." He clapped his paws. "You see, due to the gross negligence of the people expected to take care of you, you are currently behind on your studies. We are almost a month into the school year now." Himiko nods. She already knew how long she'd been out of it from when Ken lent her his phone before. "And, have you been watching the news lately?" She nods again. They're still talking about some big battle in Daika City that started over some bad school district. Well, as the principal of a school with access to unique resources, I have decided to create a new class for students impacted by schools like Aldra. We are calling it Class C. It will be an intensive cram course meant to prepare students to transfer to another course at the end of the year, making up for lost time. Okay. Nedzu and Mr. Kanshara look before Nedzu turns back to her. Well, Himiko, I am here to offer you a position in Class C. What? You want to have me at UA? Nedzu smiles. Lunch Rush and Recovery Girl can both be made aware of your dietary needs. I know Lunch Rush would happily add blood to your food for you. If you wanted, no other student would have to know. Himiko gapes. This offer can't be real. No one wants her unless she has her normal mask on, and it's too late for that for everyone in the room. They can't be really offering this to the real Himiko, can they? It's a big decision, Ken says. If you need to take some time to think about it, that's okay. UA is a dream come true. She called it a hero school a moment ago, but the principal was right. They teach other things. Even the Gen Ed kids who come out of UA are held to higher standards. I think I want to try it, she says. There is the matter of your living arrangements, Ken says thoughtfully. Nedzu hums. Yes, while UA currently has custody of you, none of our staff are currently in a position to house you until Cementos finishes our new dorms. Dorms? Himiko hadn't heard anything about UA being a boarding school. Nedzu chuckles. You aren't the first student we've had full or partial custody of. Usually, it's international students with nowhere to live locally. We're currently renovating them, unfortunately. Himiko nods. I'm sure you have some contacts who could set up a place for her, Ken says. Of course I do, Nedzu says. But I don't want Himiko to move in with complete strangers. She's going through quite a few sudden changes right now as it is. I need someone who can quickly prove themselves trustworthy to you, Nedzu says, suddenly addressing Himiko, but mostly thinking out loud. Didn't you say that personal student of yours is a quirk enthusiast? Ken says. Quirk enthusiast? Who would be enthusiastic about my quirk? Nedzu looks up, deep in thought. Potentially imposing on Mrs. Midoriya depends on their current living space. We would supply the blood and pay her, of course. Unpredictable, but it may just work. Nedzu pulls a small phone out from his vest. I'll place the call. Himiko wasn't sure what she expected when she heard the UA principal had a personal student. It certainly wasn't the short green-haired boy with bright eyes and a smile who quietly opens the door, followed by a homely-looking woman too similar in appearance not to be his mother. I apologize for this. I know you aren't a certified foster parent, but her situation is delicate. Legally speaking, we will have custody and you will functionally be sitting her while the dorms are constructed. The woman waves her arm. It's fine. I appreciate your concern, Nedzu, sir, but with Hisashi overseas, we have plenty of space for her. While they talk, the boy walks up to her bedside, a blinding smile on his face. Hi, I'm Midoriya Izuku. It looks like you may be living with me for a bit. Himiko slides her normal mask into place like an old glove. My name is Toga Himiko. It's a pleasure to meet you. Something flickers across Midoriya's face but vanishes before Himiko can recognize it. What are you watching? He asks, looking at the TV. Some silly old Western cartoons, Himiko giggles. That emotion flashes in Midoriya's eyes again. Not the sports festival? That's today. Midoriya nods. The first year's festival is today. Second year's is tomorrow, and third year's are on Monday. I'm not that into athletics. I always like watching the quirks. We're recording it at home so I can watch it over and over. He watches the TV with a faint smile. You'd think the cat would learn, Midoriya says as the cartoon mouse outmaneuvers his pursuer once again. Himiko laughs. Midoriya waits a moment before turning back to her. You don't have to pretend, you know. Himiko swallows. I don't know what you mean, she says. Midoriya turns back to the TV. He stays silent for a few seconds. I used to do that too, he said. Pretend everything was fine. If I didn't, then the bullies got worse. Because then I was fighting back and didn't know my place. And I pretended at home too. I didn't want my mom to worry about me or ruin any of her friendships. He locks eyes with Himiko. She sees a story in his eyes. There's pain there, a deep pain. But hiding it didn't make things better. Nedzu told me you have some problems with how people reacted to your quirk. I won't press, but Midoriya closes his eyes and takes a deep breath. I'm quirkless, he says. I'll never judge you for your quirk. Even if it's bad? No such thing. Gross. My childhood best friend sweats nitroglycerin. She snorts. Exactly. I promise, whatever it is, I won't judge. Himiko swallows again. She's not really spoken to many quirkless people, but she has seen the news about Aldra. If Midoriya went through even a fraction of that, then telling her that he's quirkless was a massive show of trust. She should do the same. Her lower lip wobbles. If I drink someone's blood, I can become them, she whispers. Midoriya hums thoughtfully, a thumb to his lip. Time limit? Probably related to the quantity of blood she drinks. Could she become someone and then donate blood, or would it turn back when she does? If she became someone with longer hair, what would happen if we cut it? Can she use someone's quirk while she's them? That would be so useful. He turns to her, eyes practically glowing. Do you have fangs? Most people with blood quirks have some kind of fang mutation. Himiko doesn't know how to respond to this, so she just opens her mouth and lets him see. Wow. Elongated canines on the top and bottom. Like a cat. You have such a cool quirk, Himiko. That's the first time anyone ever said that to her. You see, Nedzu? Mrs. Midoriya says. She's practically Midoriya already. What? Himiko croaks out. Midoriya snorts. Mom and I cry a lot. Himiko hadn't even noticed she was crying. And this is your room. Izuku. He insisted Himiko call him by his first name when she asked him not to use her family name. Swung the door open. It wasn't a terribly large bedroom, maybe the size of the open kitchen. Just a bed, desk, and armoire for furniture, with a wall closet across from the bed. The walls were bare but patterned with a lively blood-red wallpaper. Sorry we couldn't get you a bigger closet, Izuku says, rubbing the back of his neck. As if he and his mother hadn't basically created a new bedroom from extra space in their apartment in their free time over the last week. It had been just a week since the Midoriyas had walked into her room at the hospital, and Himiko still couldn't comprehend how they were so nice all the time. Mrs. Midoriya spoke gently, Izuku wore his heart on his sleeve, and neither of them had even told her that her quirk made her weird or bad. They had visited her every day, keeping her posted on how they converted a storage room in their apartment to a third bedroom. Sometimes they brought pictures of things they wanted for her and asked her which was her favorite. When the hospital discharged her a few hours ago, the Midoriyas were ready and waiting to take her home. Izuku practically vibrated with excitement. It's no trouble, Izuku. I'm grateful you did this much for me, Himiko says. Izuku sighs, his smile falling slightly, and she realizes she slipped into her normal persona on instinct. Whoops, force of habit. I am glad you and your mom did all this for me though. Izuku smirks. It's no trouble. Did he just? He lightly bumps a fist into her shoulder. We'll go clothes shopping tomorrow. Feel free to wander around and just get a feel for the apartment. Knowing Mom, dinner will be in half an hour or so. He steps back down the hall towards the room labeled Izuku. If you need anything, feel free to knock. Himiko slowly twirls around the center of the room. Her room at her parents' house had been larger, but this one felt different somehow. Happier. Maybe because Izuku spots her normal persona the moment Himiko slips and refused to get anything that Himiko didn't actually want. This is also why she found herself with very few outfits from her old house. He insisted she not keep anything she got to be normal, which left her with maybe enough clothes for a week and the bare bones of school supplies. She sits on the bed, the mattress is soft like she'd asked. They hadn't made her use a futon like her parents, swinging her legs. Izuku liked her quirk. Mrs. Midoriya told her nothing was wrong with her. Mr. Kan said that normal was subjective, and she needed to find her own. But why were they all so kind? She spends the time before dinner padding around the apartment. Himiko sits down at the table, a steaming bowl of beef ramen already at her seat. Izuku beams at her from the seat next to her while Mrs. Midoriya sits herself down. They give thanks for the meal and dive in. Cautiously, she takes a bite. Her eyes widen. Do you like it? Mrs. Midoriya says. It's delicious. Mom's cooking is the best, Izuku says matter-of-factly. I added a few milliliters of blood to your broth, Mrs. Midoriya continues. I hope it's not overpowering. I hadn't noticed, Himiko admits sheepishly. She swallows, setting her chopsticks down. The Midoriyas never stopped being so nice to her, but Himiko still felt herself anticipating the other shoe dropping. Are you sure I mean? She tries to find the words. Please don't burden yourselves on my account. Izuku nudges her. Normal slipped again. I mean, how much did you spend on my room? Hisashi, my husband, I'm sure I've mentioned him. Hisashi sends us more than enough money to live comfortably here, Mrs. Midoriya says. Having you here would have put a dent in Izuku's future fund at worst. But Nedzu is paying for your things. To know where he gets all his money, Izuku says between mouthfuls of ramen, but he has multiple fake cities in UA. I'm pretty sure he can handle some furniture and clothes. We aren't burdening ourselves either. You're a fine young woman who needed help. I don't need to be a pro-hero to help someone in need. A tightness in Himiko's chest loosens, and she eats the rest of her meal in content quiet. Himiko. Izuku calls, notebook in his hand. I'm gonna watch the second year's sports festival. Want to see? Himiko's instinctive reaction is to say, no. Normal girls are proper and care not for sports, her parents had said. She shakes it off, that's not her, just her mask. Sure. Izuku moves over on the couch, leaving plenty of room. Himiko plops down. I've, never watched one of these. Izuku looks scandalized. What are they like? Well, it's the entire year class at UA, so all the second years are participating. There's 3 events, randomly chosen, but there's a pattern. Pattern? Yeah. The first event is a mass elimination round, like a qualifier for the next 2 events. Himiko bites her lip. Doesn't that ensure only hero students move on? Izuku nods. Usually. Sometimes the support student's equipment pulls them through, or a Gen Ed student that didn't quite make the cut into the hero program moves on too. So, what's the second event? Wild card, Izuku says. Something that eliminates about half of the remaining competitors. The third event is always a one-on-one tournament of some kind. Himiko nods, and Izuku hits play on the remote. The announcer explains the first event, a maze run. The camera drones look down at a massive labyrinth wrapping around the center of the field. At the heart of the maze is a stage with the referee. The announcer, who introduced himself as Present Mike, whoever that is, explains that the goal is to reach the center of the maze as quickly as possible, but that the competitors cannot break the walls or attack each other. As long as they don't leave the maze, anything else is fair game. The announcer gives the word, and the students take off. Himiko stares, transfixed, as about 200 quirks go off at once. Most of the students just run for it, but several demonstrate alternative solutions. A student propels herself with energy blasts while another dissolves into mist and surges ahead. One student stretches their arms several meters and pulls themselves up a wall. But the standout is the tall blonde who jumps through each wall, running in a straight line to the goal. He easily beats the other students to the maze's center, though Himiko wishes he hadn't lost most of his clothes doing it. At least he still had pants. That guy didn't do too well last year, Izuku says, eyes flicking between his rapid note-taking and the screen. He kept falling through the ground and had to forfeit when he went totally ND. Present Mike gives the student's name, Togata Mirio. Eventually, everyone finishes or quits, and the referee Cementos, Izuku called him, declares that the first 48 students who reached the goal moved on to the next event. Each student would be provided a bow staff with bagged ends. The wrappings are covered in highly visible powder. Hitting someone with the powdered ends eliminates them. The maze itself would once more be the arena. The students had 10 minutes to scatter before they could begin tagging, and they did so with gusto. Are they hunting each other for sport? Himiko asks at the explanation of the rules. Yep. Present Mike called time, and the students set to tracking each other. Every few minutes, a competitor ambushes another and a fierce back and forth began. Since it only took a single hit to eliminate, missing the first attack could be catastrophic. At some point, a bunch of competitors got into a massive brawl, all swinging wildly at each other and desperately dodging. Togata lost his shirt again, phasing through an attack. While they were distracted, a particularly stealthy student managed to eliminate 5 of the fighters, including Togata. Tough luck, Izuku says. He puts a thumb to his lip. Hopefully he'll have a better showing next year. As Izuku said, once the 48 students had been reduced to 24, President Mike calls the event. While Cementos disassembles the labyrinth, spectators are encouraged to watch the side events and booths. Izuku fast-forwards to the 3rd event. This time, the students would be facing each other in single matches, tournament style. In the end, a student Himiko hadn't been watching during the past 2 events comes out on top. Did you have fun? Izuku asks, beaming. Yeah, she says. I think I did. She knows on some level that this is a horrible idea. But if she's right and just does nothing? She couldn't bear it. Before she can talk herself out of it, Himiko wraps the back of her hand softly against Izuku's door. Hey, Izuku, he looks up from his notebook at his desk. Can I have some of your blood? Sure, he says with no hesitation, and Himiko barely masks her shock. But don't we have some in the fridge? Izuku puts a thumb to his lip. I thought we didn't run out, did we? Himiko shakes her head. It's just, I want your blood. She shuffles a bit. When I saw Sato's blood, a kid from my school, he got in a fight, my mask slipped, and then I slipped, and I wondered. You want to see some of my blood to see if you'll freak out again? She flinches a bit at the bluntness and Izuku immediately starts flailing. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean. No, you're right. That's exactly what I wanted, Himiko admits. If I lose myself again, hurt you or Mrs. Midoriya, I don't think I'd forgive myself. She raises her head to look at him. But Mr. Kan said my words got worse when I suppressed them. So, you want a tolerance? Himiko nods. Let's go do this in the bathroom. I'll get Mom. Mrs. Midoriya was surprisingly okay with supervising her ward drinking the blood of her son. The 3 of them crowd into the bathroom. Izuku rinses his left hand and extends it to Himiko. She steps forwards, holding it gingerly, flicking her eyes to Mrs. Midoriya. The woman nods, and Himiko takes a deep breath and bites. Izuku flinches but doesn't make a noise. After a few moments, Himiko loosens her jaw, blood trickling from the small punctures on the top and bottom of Izuku's hand. She pulls the small sample of blood on her tongue. It's certainly fresher than the blood the hospital gave her, but it tastes about the same. She swallows the blood. The moment it hits her throat, everything blurs. Saito covered in blood lying on the ground, his uniform in shreds. He's bleeding, he's dying, she just keeps drinking. It tastes so good, she feels so good. Saito twitches her name on his lips, but no sound comes out. He moves his hand and tries to drag himself. KO. The bird is so pretty, she wants the bird, she drinks the bird, she shows the bird to her parents. They scream, they cry, they call her a freak, a monster, a demon, a devil, not their child. Just be normal, put on the smile, ask for the pink things, avoid the boys, talk gossip, talk fashion, be normal, be normal, be normal, be normal, be normal, be. Miko. Izuku covered in blood lying on the ground, his clothes in shreds. He's bleeding, he's dying, she just keeps drinking. It tastes so good, she feels so good. Izuku twitches her name on his lips, but no sound comes out. He moves his hand and tries to drag himself. Himiko? Can you hear me? The bird is so pretty, she wants the bird, she drinks the bird, she shows the bird to Mrs. Midoriya. She screams, she cries, she calls her a freak, a monster, a demon, a devil. Just be normal, put on the smile, ask for the pink things, avoid the boys, talk gossip, talk fashion, be normal, be normal, be normal, be normal, be normal, be. Himiko. Can you breathe for me? Breathe? That sounds easy enough. She nods. Alright, follow me. In for 4 seconds. She breathes in while the voice counts. Hold it for another 4 seconds. She does. Now exhale for 4 seconds. The voice keeps counting, so she keeps breathing. Eventually, her vision clears. She's sitting on the bathroom floor, her back to the wall, curled in on herself. A worried Izuku crouches in front of her, Mrs. Midoriya hovering just behind him. Are you with us, Himiko? Izuku asks, voice wavering. She opens her mouth, blood dribbles out his blood. She did this and closes it again. She nods instead. Are you all right? You, she croaks out, you aren't mad? The Midoriyas shake their heads. We're worried, dear. You suddenly stopped responding and started shivering, Mrs. Midoriya says. I told you I'd never judge you for your quirk, Himiko. Izuku says. What happened? I don't know, she responds shakily. I think I'll stick to the bag stuff for now. She forces herself to meet Izuku's big green eyes. Are you okay? I'm fine, he beams. I think your teeth, or maybe your saliva, has some kind of anesthetic effect. I felt pressure, but it didn't even hurt. Didn't? Dear, what you did tonight was very brave of you, Mrs. Midoriya says. Brave? She wasn't the one in danger. As if reading her mind, Mrs. Midoriya continues. You faced a very real fear of yours. You panicked, yes, but you seem more scared that you hurt Izuku, or that we'll hate you for it. Mrs. Midoriya crouches down, gently setting a hand on Himiko's shoulder. You were afraid of yourself, and you did your best to face it. I'm proud of you, Himiko. Himiko shudders and sobs, shoving her face into Mrs. Midoriya's shirt. So, is she a Midoriya yet? She hears Izuku ask. If she keeps crying like this, it won't take long, Mrs. Midoriya responds. That's what it was. Her room feels like home. Himiko doesn't want to open her eyes. She's afraid. Afraid that when she does, she'll find Mr. Ken, Nedzu and Class Z, Mrs. Midoriya, Izuku, will all have been a wonderful dream concocted by her brain as she starves in an alley somewhere. But she's in a bed. And it's soft, so it isn't a hospital bed. And she smells something cooking. She dares to look. She's in a mostly empty room with red wallpaper and some furniture. Her room. The room that's going to be full after Mrs. Midoriya takes her and Izuku shopping this evening. It all happened. It was real. There are people who care, even though she shakes the thought away. If the Midoriyas are content to pretend she isn't a monster, who is she to stop them? Himiko. Mrs. Midoriya calls. Eggs and rice are almost done. She sits up, yawns, and stretches. She briefly considers changing into her clothes, but she won't start at Class Z until September, and she's too tired right now. Besides, she isn't going out until later. She can lounge in her pajamas for a while. By the time she drags herself out of her room and across the hall to the table, Izuku is already at his seat, fully dressed. That's right, I remember Mrs. Midoriya mentioning that. Has his special lessons with Nedzu today. She slides into her chair and fumbles with her chopsticks. Not a morning person, Himiko? Izuku says between bites. She makes a noise somewhere between a groan and a hum in response. Mrs. Midoriya laughs. You should get your rest in while you can. I doubt you slept very well recently. That was fairly accurate. The hospital had been a step up from wherever she'd been sleeping on the streets. Those memories were still pretty fuzzy, but hospital beds are not the most comfortable thing Himiko's ever been on. Izuku finishes scarfing down breakfast and kisses his mom on the cheek. Before Himiko can react, he suddenly pulls her into a gentle hug. Bye, Mom. Bye, Himiko, he says, waving as he jogs down the hall and slips his shoes on. Have fun, sunshine. Mrs. Midoriya calls. I will. Izuku responds as he slips out the door. Himiko eats quietly while Mrs. Midoriya makes her way around the kitchen, cleaning up and humming a soft tune to herself. Izuku joked, but Himiko really did feel sluggish in the morning. As she's finishing her eggs and rice, Mrs. Midoriya sets a small protein bar next to her. Himiko looks at her quizzically. It's important you eat enough in the morning, dear, Mrs. Midoriya explains. You're still a little underweight. And these are that special brand made with blood. Himiko blinks, then blinks again. Mrs. Midoriya really was too kind. Himiko finishes her home-cooked food and sets to gingerly pulling the wrapper off the bar. The moment it's free, Himiko can smell the blood. It's faint, not like Saito struggling on the ground trying to escape. She's so happy he tastes so good when someone is hurt, but she can still tell. She takes a cautious nibble from the corner. Her eyes widen, and she quickly shoves the whole bar in her mouth. Careful, dude. Too fast and you'll just throw it all back up. Himiko forces herself to slow her chewing. She manages to eat the bar without making herself sick. With some food and blood in her stomach, Himiko's finally feeling awake. But now what? Izuku won't be back until the afternoon, And she doesn't have a lot to do. Guess it's more TV. She's halfway through an episode of some weird show she'd never heard of when Mrs. Midoriya approaches. Since you'll be getting new clothes this evening, she says, would you like it if I did something with your hair? Himiko says intelligently. She'd only ever worn her hair down, part of her normal mask. I've always thought about buns or braids. Mrs. Midoriya smiles gently. I think that would look lovely. And so Himiko finds herself on the couch sitting with her back to Mrs. Midoriya, feeling her long, unkempt hair slowly and deliberately wrapped around and around. Mrs. Midoriya hums to herself while she works. Himiko recognizes it as the same song she had been humming in the kitchen. What song is that? She asks. She feels Mrs. Midoriya pause. An old lullaby my mother used to sing. It got stuck in my head. This morning. Himiko opens her mouth to ask if Mrs. Midoriya would teach her before remembering herself and wrenching her mouth closed again. The woman was already showing such open hospitality. Himiko didn't want to overstep and get discarded again. She didn't think she could bear it. Eventually, Mrs. Midoriya finishes weaving her hair. All done, she says. Would you like to see? Himiko nods, and Mrs. Midoriya leads her to the bathroom. Himiko looks at herself in the mirror. I couldn't get all of your hair to cooperate, but I think it looks wonderful. Himiko's mouth hangs slightly open. The girl staring back at her looks brighter than she remembers ever seeing herself. There's color back in her cheeks. The bags under her eyes are fading. And Mrs. Midoriya was right. It looks lovely. I told you it would. Now, I'm afraid what we'll be doing next won't be nearly as much fun. What did that mean? Was she getting kicked out? Was Mrs. Midoriya getting rid of the blood? Nedzu suggested I help cover some of your core subjects to make sure you have a good handle on them before school starts. That didn't sound too bad. By the time Izuku came home, she had changed her mind. Algebra is the worst. Mrs. Midoriya, as promised, took Himiko and Izuku to the nearby Zaiten Mall after dinner. A few larger department stores with smaller chain locations in between, spread over 2 levels. It's got nothing on the Kiyoshi Ward Mall, Izuku says, but we don't need a whole lot of lifestyle support stuff. Besides, with Detnerat still drowning in investigations, I'm not sure they're stocked. Himiko looks around, starstruck. She'd been to malls before, of course. Hanging out with friends in the mall was normal. But she'd never really been for herself. She doesn't remember the last time she bought something at the mall either, except when she needed it to be normal. So even with Izuku claiming the mall isn't much, Himiko still finds herself blown away. We're starting with clothes. Get yourself some summer clothes, dear. That Fraladeja store is where Izuku shops. Don't worry, Izuku deadpants, looking down at his t-shirt that simply reads, shirt. They have more options than my personal choices in fashion. Izuku grabs her hand and leads her into the store, a chuckling Mrs. Midoriya trailing close behind. There are so many options. Everywhere Himiko looks, racks of clothes stand in neat rows and the shelves cover the walls. Mannequins pose with full outfits on them, each sorted by age, SEC, and quirk demographics. Himiko bounces around, flighting between different racks like a bee looking at flowers. What do you think, Izuku? Himiko holds up a neon green short crop shirt, which could not be less Himiko if a committee of designers sat down and purposefully made the least Himiko clothing possible. Think I could rock this? Izuku laughs. Nah. A high, dry voice sounds behind her and Himiko jumps. She turns to see a girl about Izuku's age, wearing some band t-shirt over a skirt and leggings. You'd be great in pastel goth though. Himiko giggles. Maybe. I'm not really sure what I want to wear yet. Well, not that, the girl says, a cord from her ear gesturing at the shirt Himiko grabbed. Oh, that's so cool. Izuku is beside the new girl in a flash. How strong are they? What happens if they get cut? Do they help you hear better? Oh, they have jacks on the end. Can you plug them into electronics? The new girl says. Himiko snorts. He's a quirk enthusiast. It's fun to watch when you're not the one he's examining. Izuku's face turns red. He stammers out an apology, but the girl quickly cuts him off. It's fine, I just wasn't expecting it. Jiro Kyoka. I'm Midoriya Izuku, he says sheepishly, rubbing the back of his neck. Call me Himiko. Jiro raises an eyebrow at the lack of a given family name, but thankfully doesn't press. So, Himiko, trying out a new style? Something like that, she says. I wasn't really allowed to choose my own before. Jiro nods, eyes soft. That SCKS. Glad you're getting to do it now. Let's see. Jiro walks around Himiko, studying her carefully. Dark colors would work on you. Got any preferences? Red. Himiko says. Jiro looks up in thought. I think I got an idea. Jiro leads them around the aisles, grabbing a handful of deep red shirts. Occasionally, she stops and grabs a dark blue or black overshirt or jacket and adds them to the cart Izuku helpfully grabbed. Jiro finishes their run with some dark gray skirts and black pants. Try one of these on, Jiro says, and Himiko wastes no time grabbing an outfit from the cart and dashing into the changing room. She switches into a red dress shirt, which she tucks into a dark skirt and pants combo before putting a deep blue jacket over the whole thing. She steps out of the changing room and does a quick twirl for her audience of 3 Mrs. Midoriya caught up while she was changing. You look great, dear, Mrs. Midoriya says. Not bad, Jiro says. You were right about red being your color. You going to that Takoba beach party on the 31st? If you are, you better wear something good. I don't want to be associated exclusively with people who dress like this. One of her jacks gestures to Izuku. I am aware my choice in clothing is not runway ready, Izuku grumbles, but I can dress nice if I want to. Jiro snorts. He can, Mrs. Midoriya says. You should see him in a suit. He just doesn't like dressing up. Izuku gestures to his mother as if saying, see. But yeah, Mom and I are gonna be there, Izuku says. Rad. You. Jiro turns to Himiko. It's been a while since I've been with a lot of people. The last time would have been junior high graduation, where It'll be good practice, Izuku says, but we won't force you to do something you're uncomfortable with. You're handling the crowd here pretty well, Jiro says. I think you should go for it. At the very least, you'll know 3 people. There. Himiko hums, thoughtful. Eventually, Himiko had all the clothes she wanted. She and the Midoriyas say their goodbyes to Jiro and move on to the next stop, room decorations. I still think this is too much, Himiko says. To go out of your way for a monster like me, someone who won't be staying with you very long. You'll have to decorate your dorm room somehow, Mrs. Midoriya says. Besides, there's no reason not to decorate your room. We don't know how long you'll be here, you may as well be comfortable. Himiko can't think of an objection to that. Especially with Nedzu paying for everything. Finding decorations that she likes is much easier than clothes shopping. While there are some cute animal posters, Himiko finds herself pulled towards some particularly striking artwork. Vivid images of Gothic locations and people. According to the tag, the artist is local. Himiko takes 5. For her desk, she finds an electronic clock and a small fan. She picks out a nice collection of sheets and blankets. Izuku can't even tease her for only picking red bedding because she grabbed other colors and patterns this time. When she points this out to him, he silently gestures to the bags of clothes with a deadpan expression. With her decorations sorted, Himiko and the Midoriyas check out. Carrying all the bags with them on the train back to the apartment is a hassle, but not terrible. Despite Himiko's protests, her hosts insist on helping her set up. Neither of them place any of her posters. Mrs. Midoriya just folds her clothes while Izuku folds the sheets. They even ask where she'd like them in the closet. By the time Himiko's room is her room, the sun has long set. Izuku and his mother wish her a good night and she settles in. She had a good day. The next few weeks fly by. Izuku watches Himiko slowly come out of her shell around him and his mother. Small things, like letting them to do things for her, which they had noticed she avoided. Shifting from letting Mrs. Midoriya rebraid her hair on occasion to asking her to do so. Small things like that. Himiko also discovered at some point that she craved physical attention and the Midoriyas were happy to oblige. So Izuku wasn't totally surprised when on the morning of the 31st, the day of the beach party, Himiko shyly asked if she could come with them over breakfast. I've been thinking about it, she admits, staring intently into her sausage as she rolls it over the lettuce and fried egg in her breakfast bowl. After Jiro mentioned the crowd at the mall, and I realized that I hadn't even noticed they were there. Himiko swallows. I think I can do this. She raises her eye to meet his mother's, who smiles gently. If it gets too much for you, let me know. The point is to have a good time, Himiko. If you're overwhelmed, we can come back and play games together or something. We'll be with you the whole time, Izuku promises. Once he gets back from his lessons with Nedzu and Mr. Aizawa. Izuku spends a lot of time debating on what to wear to the beach. On one hand, he could dress casually the way he likes. On the other, he could put some effort into it and screw with Jiro if they see her. I guess Nedzu is rubbing off on me. I'm feeling a bit petty today. Izuku adopts a small yet sadistic grin as he slides a nice jacket over his plain shirt. It's a simple look, with his dark pants and shoes, but it comes together well. He steps out into the hall and sees Himiko chose the outfit she tried on at the mall. He compliments her and pretends not to notice her flush like she does when she receives any praise. Her parents are lucky Mr. Kan had them arrested, or Izuku suspects his mom would have killed them by now. He knows he's tempted. Party doesn't start until sundown, Izuku says. We've got just under 2 hours until then. What do you want to do? Himiko shrugs. Movie. Already ahead of you, Mom calls from the living area. Izuku and Himiko share a glance before making their way over. His mother stands by the TV, holding a classic anime movie about a young witch. She waves it slightly, smirking. What's that? Himiko asks. Izuku gasps in mock horror. You've never seen it? Crime. A travesty. We must correct this. Himiko snorts at his antics and sits down on the couch. His mom inserts the disc and takes her place next to Himiko on the couch. Himiko leans into her, and his mom wraps an arm around her. By the time the credits roll, all three of them are crying. Izuku hears the party before he sees it. The chatter of the crowd carries, and from the sound of it, several partygoers brought their own music. Izuku wonders if Jiro is one of them. The small group round the corner of a trash mountain and there lies an open stretch of clean sand. Izuku expected there to be a patch of open space, but people must have been motivated, because the garbage dumps is now just on the far ends of the beach. People form small pods of small talk from the sidewalk to the shore. A small pier extends over the water, the attached gazebo similarly filled with guests. Himiko lets out a small whine. It'll be okay, his mom promises her. You won't have to interact with them, or even go near most of them, and if you get overwhelmed, we'll go home. She ushers Izuku and Himiko towards a ring of tables at the outskirts of the cleared section, where two women pass out junk food to passing people. The inside of the ring is packed to the gills with boxes of snack bags and travel coolers. Izuku sees one of the women pull a soda can out of one and hand it to someone who came up to the table. Hello, his mother says to one of the women. My name is Midoriya Inko. Thank you for doing all of this. She bows. Joy Otto Hibana, the woman says, pulling some of her long red hair out of her face. My wife over there is Joyato Adataka. Our daughter, Hikari, is over there. She gestures to a place further down the table where a girl covered in glowing floral patterns is wrestling a bird made of shadow. This whole thing was her idea, Joyato Adataka says, sliding a bowl of chips across to Izuku. Our family doesn't have any powerful quirks, and MLA rhetoric hurt us all over the years. Hikari wanted to meet with other people who've been through the same thing. What are your quirks? Izuku asks. My eyes glow, Joyato Hibana says, and they flare up a little in demonstration. What quirk? Joyato Adataka responds slyly. Izuku's eyes widen. You're quirkless too? The woman nods. Since you came, you probably faced some real shit for it. She ignores her wife nudging her and hissing, language. Izuku nods. Aldra, is all he says. The women wince. When we heard the news, we were just grateful Hikari didn't go there, Joyato Hibana says. I'm sorry. They really didn't like that I want to be a hero, he says. A hero? No shit. Joyato Adataka says. She turns to her daughter and calls, Hey, Hikari. Found another kid who wants to be a hero. Expand your career network. The youngest Joyato has since moved from arm wrestling to standing perfectly straight with her arms extended to her sides, while the shadow bird is doing the same. A resigned-looking boy with a raven head desperately tries to stop it. "Hell yeah," she calls without breaking her pose. Izuku and Himiko leave his mother to continue chatting with the Joyato matriarchs, heading over to where their daughter is locked in a strange standoff with the shadow creature. "So, what are you doing?" Himiko asks. Asserting dominance, Joyato and the shadow creatures say simultaneously. The boy with the bird head, who Izuku can now see is connected to the shadow creature, shuffles awkwardly. "Tokoyami Fumikage," the boy nods toward the shadow creature. "My fellow servant of darkness here is Dark Shadow." "Nice to meet ya," Dark Shadow says. Izuku and Himiko introduces themselves in turn. "So, you're a sapient quirk? That's pretty rare." Izuku starts, ignoring Himiko's snickering into the back of her hand. "Did you manifest at his birth or when he was 4? Can you read his mind? Can you talk telepathically?" Tokoyami blinks several times, causing Joyato to finally slip from her pose from laughing. "What?" Dark Shadow suddenly flies forward, wrapping around Izuku and hugging him, while Tokoyami looks away sheepishly. "Few people treat Dark Shadow as their own person," he admits. "They tend to get excited about it." "They did it to me earlier," Joyato laughs, adjusting the band, keeping most of her fiery hair in a spiked ponytail. "But they're sapient," Izuku says slowly. "It's obvious from a cursory glance." "And yet," Dark Shadow says, unwinding from around Izuku. Izuku rubs the back of his neck. "I'm just really interested in quirks," he says. "Always have been." "You're lucky Dark Shadow's here," Himiko stage whispers to Joyato. "He got distracted before he could jump you about your quirk." "But my quirk isn't interesting," Joyato protests. Izuku's head snaps to her like a wolf smelling fresh steak. "You're producing light though. Are those tattoos or natural markings from your quirk? They're glowing red. Is that because that's the light with the longest wavelength? Can you control the wavelengths? Can you make it infrared or ultraviolet? How intense can the light be?" "I see your point," Joyato says to Himiko before turning her sky blue eyes back to Izuku. "The markings are natural. It's a mutation quirk. I can't get it bright enough to hurt my own eyes, but I inherited some of Mom's light resistance, so that's probably brighter than you'd think. The quirk counselor said I could probably make ultraviolet and infrared light, but I haven't figured it out yet," and Joyato trails off as the markings slowly shift from red to yellow to blue to green and all around. "But I have to focus or they'll go back to red." Izuku jots all of this down in his notebook, muttering theories on how to achieve non-visible light. Joyato watches with a bemused expression. "So, your mom said you wanted to be a hero too?" Izuku says. Joyato nods. "Them too." She jerks her thumb at Tokoyami and Dark Shadow. "But yeah, I want to be a rescue hero." "Oh, the light would make it easy to help people trapped in buildings or collapsed areas." "Exactly. What about you, Himiko?" Himiko shuffles, looking away and biting her lip. "I was offered a place in the new Class Z at UA," she says. "I don't know where I'll go from there though." She fidgets. "I know that look," Joyato says. "Someone hurt you. For a long time. Emily get you too?" Himiko shakes her head. "The MLA didn't do anything," she says, voice wavering, "and that's the problem. They said they're all about quirk freedom, but when my parents—" "Do not force yourself. We are still unknown to you," Tokoyami says as Dark Shadow nuzzles Himiko. She forces a smile at him. "I want to," she says, barely a whisper. "My quirk means I need to drink blood. My parents, they didn't like that. They told me I was a monster." Himiko chokes on a sob. "It's hard for me not to believe them. If the MLA really believe in quirk freedom, why didn't they save me?" "Himiko," Izuku says, eyes damp. Tokoyami clears his throat. "Many people called Dark Shadow a monster or demon. This is falsehood. The real monsters are those consumed with hatred, such as your despicable parents, as the case may be." Izuku nods. At Aldra, he ignores Tokoyami and Joyato wince. They told me I was worthless every day. They said I was a waste of space. Useless. They all misread my name to remind me that I meant nothing. He pulls Himiko into a tight hug. And I almost believed them. But Mom and All Might and Nedzu, they all said that was wrong. He looks up at Himiko. I'm not worthless and you are not a monster. He's right, dear, Izuku's mom says. He didn't hear her come up behind him. She must have heard us talking. She brushes a hand down Himiko's cheek. You're a fine young girl who is still looking for herself. Her gaze hardens. The real monsters are your parents, for telling you those things about yourself and making you suppress your quirk for so long. The darkness of the human heart runs deep, Tokoyami says. Do not let it consume you. There are clearly people who care about you, Himiko. Dark Shadow punctuates his point by nuzzling her. Are they in jail? Janowitz. When Izuku nods, she snorts. But you don't deserve that sheet. Quirks don't define us, Himiko, Izuku says gently. He rubs Himiko's back as she sobs into Mom's shirt. Once Himiko calmed down, and rehydrated with some help from the Joyato snack bar, Izuku starts making his way down the beach, taking stock of the people. There's quite a bit of activity by the shore, people running around or swimming. There's even a floating swimsuit in the shallows. No wait, it's someone invisible. But most people are content just to spend time with other people in similar situations. Izuku had talked with his mom and Himiko, and they agreed that clean beach or not, the water at Takoba was not clean enough for them to go in. Ahead, Izuku spots a familiar purple-haired girl gesticulating with her ear jacks to an excited pink girl and a boy with black hair. Hey Jiro, he waves. She turns to see him and slumps. Midoriya, she says when he jogs over, the fact that you actually can dress decently means it hurts more that you choose not to. He rubs the back of his neck. I did tell you. Hey man, the boy says. Kirishima Ijiro. Super pumped to be here. I'm Ishido Mina. She claps her hands in front of her. I have been dying to get out and do something lately. SCS about the MLA still being around though. Greenie here is Midoriya Izuku, and his friend there is Himiko, Jiro says. Take it easy on her, Ishido. She's apparently new to the whole social interaction thing. Izuku's mildly touched. She remembered that from 3 weeks ago. K. Ishido bounces on her heels. Oh, I don't mind, but it's very kind of you, Himiko says with a small, fake smile. Izuku nudges her and she winces. You good? Yeah, I was just surprised, Himiko whispers back. Jiro frowns. That what you mean about not being allowed to choose a style? Had to act, she says. Himiko blanches. Sorry, I tend to hear everything around me. Don't worry about it. I'm not exactly on the moral high ground of teenage rebellion. She gestures to her punk rock t-shirt with one of her jacks. I won't mention it, don't worry. What you whispering about? Ishido says. Kirishima nudges her. If they wanted us to know, they wouldn't be whispering, Mina. Ishido laughs. Okay. I'll try and keep my energy down, she says. After that, they drift towards comfortable light conversation, and time drifts by. At some point, Ishido brings up her dancing lessons, and Jiro plays something for her on her phone. Watching Ishido breakdance in the sand sends the group into hysterics. Eventually, a pink-haired girl rigged some machine to Joyato, using her glowing markings to make a full-on nightclub light show, and Izuku's mother decided it was time to leave before the police arrived. All in all, Izuku had fun tonight, and it looks like Himiko did too. A win in his book. Nedzu packs away his chessboard as Izuku slips out of his office after Aizawa. He had intended on switching to his preferred game, Go, but Midoriya clearly had not slept as well the night before as he usually did, and Nedzu didn't want to introduce such a complex game under those conditions. Nedzu suspects he went to that celebration at the Takoba Municipal Beach Park. He should have more positive social experiences in these formative years. If his time count is correct, Yagi should be nearing the office by now. Glancing at the monitor displaying the camera feed in front of his office door, a simple trick that only a handful had ever actually bothered to realize confirms Nedzu's suspicions. He slips around the desk and opens it just as Yagi raises his hand to knock. Come in, Yagi. He ushers the man to a chair he'd already prepared. Today is the day, yes? Exciting. Yagi nods. I cannot think of a better candidate, Yagi says. And yet, over the past few weeks I've found myself wondering whether he'll accept? Nedzu has his own suspicions. If Yagi is bringing this up, they may in fact be on the same page. We'll just have to wait and see once Aizawa's done with him. Izuku wonders whether he'd be doing better if he hadn't gone to the beach party the night before. He can't bring himself to regret it. Technically, he was the guest of honor, even if only a handful of people knew that. And it made Himiko feel better. But also Mr. Aizawa is now telling him off for not punching properly. So there's that. You do not punch with only your arm, Midoriya. Mr. Aizawa drawls from the side. Use your whole body. Keep light on your feet and pivot your hips. Izuku corrects his stance and hits the sparring dummy again. Better. Your shoulders, core, hips, and legs are just as important as the arm and fist. You're liable to hurt yourself if you do it wrong. Heroes shouldn't add more casualties. The UA gym at the PE grounds has equipment set up for hand-to-hand training today. Mr. Aizawa alternated equipment day to day. Izuku could be drilling combat one day and parkour the next. After another grueling 30 minutes of drills, Mr. Aizawa calls the lesson and hands him a water bottle. He forces down his urge to simply chug the bottle, taking measured sips so he doesn't make himself sick. You're making good progress, Mr. Aizawa says while Izuku pants. I think we'll be ready for a proper spar by the end of the week. Izuku nods, a weary grin splitting his face. Once he's recovered, Izuku follows Mr. Aizawa back to Nedzu's office. As usual, Nedzu opens the door just before Mr. Aizawa can knock. The teacher rolls his eyes in response to the principal's shenanigans and the weasel. Nedzu sends Mr. Aizawa on his way, the underground hero muttering about being illogical, and gestures for Izuku to enter. He notices All Might, in his gaunt form, almost instantly. The man smiles good-naturedly at Izuku, and he returns the gesture. Nedzu takes his seat across the desk as Izuku sits. Yagi here has a rather unique offer for you, Midoriya, Nedzu says. But remember, it is only an offer. It will help you, yes, in many ways. But neither of us believe this is something you must accept. Indeed, All Might says, then takes a deep breath. What do you know of my quirk, young Midoriya? Well, Izuku thinks about everything he's seen about All Might. People online have speculated about it since your debut, especially since you keep avoiding the topic in interviews. The most common theory is that it's a strength enhancer, but that doesn't explain the sheer power of it. As you said, my quirk is not a strength enhancer. It is a stockpiling quirk, which has been building power since the dawn of quirks. Since the Zuku's head snaps up. How? Does the energy carry down at birth? No other stockpile quirk works that way. Nedzu cackles, but Izuku is focused solely on All Might. You've made a significant incorrect assumption there, young Midoriya, but an understandable one. You see, I was not born with this quirk. What? All Might nods. My quirk is known as One for All, and possesses two functions. The first, as I described, is to stockpile power. The second is that it can be passed on at the will of the user. Izuku reels. This changes just about everything he knows about quirk theory. He'll have to go through all his notebooks and see how transferable quirks change his assumptions and deductions. The implications on quirk factor alone, much less other biological quirk functions. Young Midoriya, All Might pulls him out of his thoughts, chuckling. The unique offer that Nedzu mentioned? Would you like to be the next bearer of One for All? What? As I told you before, I can only use my quirk for so long each day, and that time is dwindling. I am currently looking for a successor. When Izuku swallows, when we met on the rooftop, did you want me then? Is that why? All Might shakes his head. On that day, I said you could be a hero because of your mind. He pokes Izuku's forehead, then lowers the finger to Izuku's chest, and your heart. You said you wanted to be a hero to save people, and you put so much work into analyzing quirks so that you could have a fighting chance at that. It was not that conversation that convinced me you were worthy. Then what was? Izuku asks. All Might laughs, wiping a trace of blood from his lip. Why, when you charged in to save your classmate from the villain I carelessly let escape. I showed you my injury, you knew the risks, and you improvised a plan and charged in anyway. That was when I knew you had the spirit of heroism I was looking for. All Might chuckles, scratching the back of his head. Actually, I intended on offering you my quirk that day, but you told me how proud you were to have been a hero without a quirk, so I held off. Then everything with Ina happened. Izuku sags in relief. He takes a deep breath, slowly raising his head to meet All Might's gaze. I'm honored you've trusted me with this secret, and that you consider me worthy, but, he swallows. If I say yes, if I take your quirk, I'd be saying that they, my teachers, the MLA, that they were right. That I needed a quirk to be anything. I'm sorry All Might, but my answer is, no. Izuku's eyes sharpen. I've lived my whole life being controlled by them. I want to experience what it really means to be quirkless, to be me. And I can't do that with One for All. To his surprise, All Might only smiles wider. I suspected that would be your answer, he admits. I as well, Nedzu pipes up. Yagi and I discussed it briefly while we waited for you. And I assure you, this changes nothing about your lessons from me and Aizawa. A quirkless hero is something we've sorely lacked. I look forward to seeing you become one. Yagi? Izuku asks. All Might chuckles nervously before a coughing fit interrupts him. Did I never tell you? My name is Yagi Tashinori. Holy, he just learned. All Might's name. All Might Yagi laughs boisterously. I guess I neglected to mention it. My apologies, young Midoriya. Call me Yagi while I'm in my, smaller form. Izuku nods. I suppose, since I have told you this much, I can tell you this as well. I, too, was born quirkless, young Midoriya, All Might says. Izuku isagas in a breath. It made sense in hindsight, given the explanation of One for All and why he only ever used that, but the thought that the number one hero was like him leaves him stunned. All Might coughs. What I went through is very different from you, but I too had no one believe in my ambition of heroism. Until Shimura Nana, my predecessor, found me worthy to hold One for All. He places a hand on Izuku's shoulder. Speaking with you that day in April reminded me of just how much I let myself forget about myself and my past. Izuku sniffles, wiping his face with his palm. It was a lot to take in, and a part of Izuku was afraid that Nedzu and Mr. Aizawa only taught him as preparation for One for All. Having 6 weeks of external validation from people outside his immediate family helped, but his 10 years at Aldera had taken their toll. But now what? Izuku doesn't want One for All, but that doesn't change the fact that All Might's time is dwindling. Did he have anyone else in mind? He didn't make any plans dependent on Izuku saying yes, did he? He'll still find someone in time, right? Don't feel guilty that Yagi hasn't found a successor yet, Midoriya, Nedzu says as if reading his mind. He will be keeping an eye on our hero students here at UA, including the upcoming year. Your choice has not inconvenienced us any. The principal takes a sip of tea. One more thing. I didn't wish to overstep, force too many changes on you at once, but I believe it would do well to talk with Inui during some of your free time here about what you went through in Aldera. He's the counselor, right? Izuku says. You think I need therapy? Almost every hero I've ever worked with has a therapist, young Midoriya, says Mr. Yagi. Including me. Heroes ease the burden on civilians, says Nedzu, but who eases the burdens of heroes? Izuku blinks. He'd never really thought of it that way. He thought heroes just shrugged off that kind of stuff. I'll talk to him, Izuku says slowly. I do believe we are out of time, unfortunately, Nedzu interjects. Get some rest, Midoriya. Tomorrow I'll be teaching you a new game. Shoyuta trudges into the conference room and slumps into his chair. The rat called another faculty meeting, in what was rapidly becoming a trend. Not that Shoyuta blames him after the MLA discovery. Glad to see you could join us, Nedzu says. After all, I think you're the one most invested in the news I have to share. Shoyuta PPS an eyebrow. What's the rat planning now? Found another conspiracy? Ken asks. The rat chortles. No. Good news this time. Nedzu rubs his paws together. I secured permission from the board to continue our changes to the sports festival that we began this year, as well as permission to improve our entrance exam. Shoyuta sits up. The board barely approved adding rescue points. How'd you convince them to let in more applicants with less traditional quirks? The rat grins predatorily. In previous years, I could not accuse the board of acting sympathetic to insurrectionists. Shoyuta snorts, hiding a smile in his capture scarf. Kayama and Hizashi don't bother to restrain themselves, both of them full-body laughing in their seats. I know we changed the sports festival events this year to prioritize skill over power. Ken says, how are we doing things next year? I'm glad you asked, the rat says, pulling out 2 thick folders. These contain my proposals for next year's entrance exam and sports festival, respectively. Do look them over and offer feedback. I notice Yagi isn't here, Shoyuta says. Nedzu nods. I'm afraid he's too inexperienced for this sort of thing. I have a solution in mind for that, but in the meantime most of these planning decisions will be made without him, Nedzu explains. Shoyuta nods. When Nedzu announced All Might would be joining the staff starting next year, he'd been apprehensive. All Might may be the #1 hero, but he hasn't stepped foot in a classroom since he graduated UA. Shuta's glad to hear Nedzu has some idea for how to help with that. I take it he'll be helping with Class C? Shoyuta drawls. It's the only logical answer. Quite so. He won't be teaching in any official capacity, merely a recurring guest speaker of sorts. That should neatly take care of the legal side of things while letting him learn. From you all. After a moment of silence proves no one else has any questions, Nedzu continues, pulling out packets from one of his folders. Let's begin with the entrance exam. My proposed changes are simple, but I believe them effective. Becoming a quirkless pro hero is going to be an uphill battle. Toshinori knows that better than anyone, except maybe young Midoriya himself. And that means that the boy needs allies. The UA staff are all on his side. How could they not be? The boy is a walking ball of sunshine. One for all or not, he'll make an amazing symbol for the next generation. But he'll also need equipment. Maijima is good, but he'll likely be focused on teaching, and it wouldn't be fair to ask him to play favorites to someone trying out for a different course entirely. But Toshinori has someone else in mind. It's been a long time. We really should have caught up sooner. Toshinori still remembers the phone number off the top of his head and dials. He hears the line pick up on the 6th or 7th ring. Toshi? God, how long's it been, his old friend says. Too long. I'm sorry I haven't been calling as much lately. No, I remember you telling me you had something to do that might take you a while. Toshinori laughs. Had he really been that vague about finding a successor? I'm afraid that I'm still working on that, he says, but Nedzu is helping now, so I'll have much more time to catch up. But I met someone very interesting. Oh. Yes, Toshinori laughs. A young boy with a sharp mind. He wants to take the hero exam next year and get into UA. Sounds like he's grown on you, Toshi. He has, Toshinori admits freely. But I think Melissa would like to meet him. You sound like you know something, David Shield says. What's this about? Well, Toshinori says. I thought if Melissa transferred to UA for her 3rd year, she would be here to personally help the first quirkless hero herself while he was in school. There's silence on the line for several seconds as Dave processes. Well, I'll be d'med, he whispers at last. I think you're right, she probably would love to meet him. I know she loves it here at the I-Island Academy, so I can't make any promises, but I bet I wouldn't have to try very hard to convince her to visit. I'll keep my schedule open, Toshinori promises. 6 weeks passed quickly for Izuku. His lessons with Nedzu picked up not long after the principal introduced Izuku to his favorite board game, Go. The principal's lessons often covered both philosophy and practical applications of information gathering and analysis. Izuku is confident that by the entrance exam he'd have the skill to destroy Aldra himself had Nedzu not already done so. Nedzu wasn't the only one who picked up the pace of his training. Mr. Aizawa, true to his prediction, started sparring with Izuku. The first few fights lasted a few seconds, but now Izuku can almost hold his own. Sometimes Mr. Aizawa would bring in UA students as sparring partners, just to make sure Izuku didn't develop habits from fighting only him. Izuku was hesitant at first to take time away from actual students, but Mr. Aizawa assured him that Nedzu, or the rat, as Mr. Aizawa called him, offered extra credit to anyone who sparred with Izuku. One of the most frequent students to take up that offer was Togata, who Izuku remembered from the second year's sports festival. Togata had improved in leaps and bounds since then. By mid-July, Izuku had a decent shot against several of the first-year hero students, and even the second years weren't instantly destroying him. Very few third years ever joined him, which is fair, Izuku figures. He can't exactly give them a good fight. "You're doing good, kid," Mr. Aizawa says, and Izuku flushes with pride. "I'm home," he calls, slipping his shoes off at the apartment entrance. "Aizu," Himiko calls, bounding down the hall to pull him into a quick hug. "I know I said it this morning, but happy birthday." "How was your day, sunshine?" his mother asks from the kitchen. Izuku smells her katsudon and his grin widens. He follows Himiko over to where his mom is cooking. Mom?" Izuku says, "That's a lot of katsudon for just the three of us." His mom laughs. "I got a call about a week ago while you were at UA," she says. Mr. Yagi asked if he could come by with two of his friends. Izuku perks up. All Might is visiting for his birthday. Yeah, only he knows that, but still. Did he say who his friends were? Izuku asks. Nope. Himiko says. Just that it's going to be a surprise. Will you be alright? He says. She's doing much better since she first moved in back at the start of May, but Himiko still struggles around strangers sometimes. Mrs. Midoriya already asked. I'll be okay. Izuku nods, carefully choosing to ignore Himiko's slip. His mother shoots him a knowing glance. Himiko's own birthday is just over 3 weeks away, and from the sounds of it, their planned surprise is a guaranteed success. Izuku steps back out from his room into the main halls. He just changed out of his unofficial school clothes into something more comfortable. He doesn't really have a uniform since he wasn't officially a UA student. Hopefully. He makes his way to the table, where Himiko and his mom finish setting up for 6. Do you know when Mr. Yagi and his friends will get here? He asks. It should be soon, Mom says. Sometime in the next half hour or so. Naturally, it was that very moment someone knocked on the door. His mom ushers him and Himiko to their seats before hurrying down the hall. Izuku cranes to see who's at the door, but at his angle he won't be able to see anyone until they're halfway to the table. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Yagi, his mom echoes down the hall. The pleasure is mine, All Might, Mr. Yagi says. I wish we had met sooner. Izuku hears more voices, but he can't make out what they're saying. They must still be in the hallway outside the apartment. Mother returns, followed by Mr. Yagi and David Shield. You know this guy? Himiko whispers. Izuku nods, mouth hanging. A ringing laugh draws him out of his stupor. See, Papa? You have a fan, says a tall, blonde girl as she moves her bangs out from in front of her glasses. Izuku hadn't noticed her come in. She must be the other guest. Mr. Shield laughs. I did tell you young Midoriya was quite knowledgeable, Mr. Yagi says, before turning to Himiko. Hello, young Himiko. I don't believe we've had the pleasure of meeting yet. I'm Yagi Tashinori. I'm acquainted with several members of staff at UA. Himiko nods and Mr. Yagi gestures for his guests to introduce themselves. As Midoriya said, I'm David Shield. I'm a scientist at I-Island. This is my daughter, Melissa. The younger Shield reaches out a hand as Izuku goes to bow, both halting at the same time. Himiko giggles. Traitor. It's nice to meet you, Miss Shield, Izuku says, accepting the handshake. Midoriya Izuku. Please, just Melissa is fine, Melissa says. Call me Himiko. Yagi, you never told me your friends were so famous, his mother says. Mr. Yagi chuckles. I hope you didn't go too out of your way. Not at all, ma'am, Mr. Shield says. Toshi is a longtime family friend. I'm just glad we managed to get time off this week to meet Midoriya for his birthday. He's practically my uncle, Melissa chimes. Young Midoriya is truly something else, Mr. Yagi says, taking his seat. The shields follow his example, and his mom sets to serving katsudon. Papa says you want to be a pro hero, Melissa says after everyone's finished eating. Izuku nods. I know being a quirkless hero is going to be hard, but it's always been my dream. Melissa smiles wistfully. I was afraid I'd have to give up my dream when the doctor told me I was quirkless. Izuku freezes. But Uncle told me that I could be someone's hero through my support equipment, the way Papa is for All Might. Melissa's blue eyes meet Izuku's green. If you're going to do this, you need gear. I wouldn't want to impose, Izuku says, but Melissa shakes her head. It's your birthday. Besides, she leans in slightly as though sharing a secret. We quirkless need to stick together. So, what can I do for you? Izuku places a thumb to his lip and thinks. Mr. Aizawa told me that mobility is one of the most important parts of heroism. I also like his capture scarf as a way to apprehend targets, but I'm not sure that's the right tool for me. Melissa lights up. Papa, what about? The cat's cradle, right? Mr. Shield says. Melissa nods enthusiastically. Cat's cradle? Himiko asks. Like the string game? Exactly. Mr. Shield pulls out a small metal disc from his pocket and sets it on the table. He types something on his phone, and the disc lights up, projecting a hologram of some kind of gauntlet. It's something I designed, Melissa says excitedly. It's still in the prototype stage. The concept is a pair of gauntlets which house special cables you manipulate with your hands. You can use them to maneuver, restrain, or any number of things. It sounds perfect. Izuku breathes. Mr. Shield hums thoughtfully. Wouldn't they pair well with the jet boots? Oh. Melissa claps. That's brilliant, Papa. She turns back to Izuku. The jet boots use bursts of compressed air to launch you. We hope to have a gliding function someday. Well, happy birthday, Midoriya, Mr. Shield says. We'll get to work on your first set of gear within the week. A stunned silence falls on the family. But I am not licensed, Izuku protests. I'm not even in a hero school yet. I can't go around with a costume and support items. Perhaps not, Mr. Yagi says. But you would be allowed to use them at UA. Izuku's eyes water. Thank you all so much. After dinner, Himiko and his mother gave Izuku their gifts, a new notebook and a DVD of the sports festival, respectively, and the Shields and Mr. Yagi took their leave. Izuku settles onto the couch, and Himiko sits next to him a moment later. Aizu, she says. Is this what birthdays are supposed to be like? And oh, how Izuku hurts. Yeah, he says, your family and sometimes your friends get together and you just have a good day with them. Oh. Izuku is glad Himiko's parents were arrested. It would be difficult to get into UA if he were arrested for double homicide. Well, your birthday is just over 3 weeks away, right? We'll just have to make sure it's the best birthday you've ever had. That reminds me, Mom says, coming up behind them. Nedzu asked to host your party at UA so that the staff could attend. You haven't met them all yet. She places 2 cups of tea on the coffee table in front of Izuku and Himiko before sitting down herself. Can you tell me about them? The teachers? Himiko asks. Izuku brightens. Hero information is his specialty. Well, there's Nedzu, the principal, you already met him. There's Mr. Aizawa, or Eraserhead. He's underground, so he's not super well known. He can be pretty stern, but it's because he doesn't want people getting hurt. There's Ectoplasm. He can be intense, but he's nice. Power Loader teaches the support courses. Izuku puts a thumb to the corner of his mouth. Present Mike, the one with the radio show? He teaches English. Cementos teaches literature. Midnight teaches modern art history, and she specializes in hero art. I think I met her, Himiko says. Back when I was, out of it. Izuku nods, taking a sip of his tea. You also met Vlad King. There's Snipe, and Hound Dog is a counselor. Recovery Girl is the school nurse, and there's 13 and Lunch Rush, Izuku finishes. And they, Himiko swallows. They won't hate me because of my quirk? Izuku shakes his head. I think all of them faced some kind of quirk discrimination. I think all of them were told at one point that they couldn't be heroes because of their quirk or appearance, even species. Izuku pulls Himiko in gently. They all know what it's like. They won't hate you. Himiko sobs quietly for a few minutes before composing herself again. Mr. Nedzu offered me that opportunity, but I feel like I'm squandering it, she murmurs, sniffling. I'm going to UA, but I don't know what I'm doing there. What do you want to do? Asks his mom. I just want to be. I want to live without having to hide parts of myself. I don't want people to think I'm weird, or different, or, she sniffles. Izuku holds her, sitting quietly for a minute. You should be a hero, he says. Himiko starts, looking at him. If you're a hero, people will see your quirks saving lives and they'll think it's cool. Himiko shifts her gaze to the floor, contemplating. I'd never heard of Vlad King before he found me, Himiko says at last. If someone like me had been a hero, had been popular when I was young, my parents, they would've. Those people are not your parents, dear, his mom chimes in. They should have cared for you and loved you, and they didn't. They lost the right to be called your parents a long time ago. I'll think about it, Himiko says. I see you've re-enrolled half of your class now, Nedzu says, glancing up from the paperwork Aizawa handed him. The man grunts. They've learned the lesson I wanted them to. I'm holding out hope for the other 10, but they haven't made much progress yet, and it's almost the end of the term. Indeed. Nedzu sets the paper to the side, resolving to finalize the class transfer as soon as the meeting ends. This does raise a concern though. I had rather hoped you would still be free to teach not only Midoriya, but Class Z as well. This lot had some potential, he says. It happens. I should still be available for Midoriya though. Now that he's sparring, I can have him participate in some of the heroics lessons. An elegant solution. Be careful not to overwhelm him. I'm more concerned I'll over-prepare him. That kid really lives up to Plus Ultra. At this rate, he'd be able to pass the previous year's entrance exam. Probably win the whole free-for-all. Imagine how powerful he'd be if he'd been properly supported, Nedzu muses, mostly to himself. Guess that's our job, huh? Yes, it certainly is. Nedzu stands, arms folded behind his back. Seeing as you'll be teaching your 1A, I suppose there's only one person left to handle Class C. Aizawa stares. You're sure? You've upped your duties already this year. It was my idea, I'll see it through to the end, Nedzu says. For Class Z, I'll teach homeroom once more. Izuku retracts the cable, barely pulling himself along out the way of Togata's attack. The blonde laughs, disappearing under the streets of ground beta yet again as Izuku flips upward and lands. For the past week, Mr. Aizawa wanted Izuku to use the new gear from the shields. Today's exercise is fighting a team comprised of UA students working together to take him down. Mr. Aizawa had saved this team for last. Amajiki, Heido, and Togata. All three had versatile quirks and trained extensively to master them. Izuku had personally watched Togata's improvement from their sparring sessions. This was Amajiki's first time joining one of Izuku's sessions, and he suspects Heido dragged him. She's extroverted like that. Speaking of Heido, Izuku hears a blast of her wave motion slam into a nearby building, sending chunks flying. Izuku proved he could dodge her direct attacks, so Heido switched up her strategies. Izuku whirls, whipping the cables from the cat's cradle on his wrist, and a single flick carves them through the rubble. Small rocks and pebbles rain down on Izuku. He raises an arm in front of his face to block the dust. Izuku sidesteps a punch from Amajiki, briefly noticing the student's fist encased in some kind of shell, and grabs his arm and flips him. Too long since Togata's last attack. Izuku launches to the side with a burst from the jet boots just in time for Togata to fly through where he'd been standing, vanishing once again. One-on-one, I might be able to outlast him, but I definitely can't when I'm outnumbered. Izuku aborts an attack at a still-prone Amajiki to dodge another blast of wave motion. He's too focused on her energy blast to notice Togata's hand reach through the ground and grab his ankle. Izuku stumbles and hits the ground. That's enough, Mr. Aizawa calls, walking towards where the four catch their breath. Melissa trails close behind him. She's only in Japan for a few more days and wanted to personally make sure the new gear held up. Midoriya, your endurance and reflexes have improved. Keep it up. Izuku flushes at the praise. Amajiki, invest in longer range options, but otherwise you did good. The boy nods, hiding his face. Hato, try to keep property damage to a minimum. My bad. Togata, good improvement on your quirk control. Yes, sir. Do some cool-down stretches and we'll call it a day, Mr. Aizawa says, walking off. Izuku removes his gear. He takes a swig of water from his water bottle before following Mr. Aizawa's instructions and stretching. It looks like you've got the basic functionality down, Melissa says, examining the cat's cradle. I can't wait to see how you'll use it by the time next year rolls around. Thanks, Melissa. She smiles and grabs his equipment, taking it back to the support labs for a more thorough examination. You're getting pretty good, Midoriya. Togata says. You're one to talk, you've improved so much since the sports festival. Izuku replies. I've got a long way to go. You saw that, huh? Togata laughs. Yeah, after that Sir Night Eye scouted me for internships. He's helped me a ton these last few months. Without him I'd still be falling out of my clothes. He sure would. Did you see our first sports festival? He got disqualified for it. Hato gushes. Izuku laughs. I remember. They had to censor the footage. It's a miracle I got into UA at all. Togata says. So, your mentor is Sir Night Eye? Like All Might's old sidekick Sir Night Eye? He's great. Togata says. He's got a real sense of humor too. I'd love to meet him. Izuku says. He's one of my inspirations. A hero with a non-physical quirk and he managed to be All Might's sidekick. Ooh. Togata. Tell him. Hato cheers. Togata chuckles. Yeah, Sir is actually here right now. He is. Izuku barely manages to avoid losing his balance mid-stretch. He's in the teacher's lounge right now. I think he's here to check on sending me another work-study offer. I'll introduce you. Thank you so much. Togata opens the door to the teacher's lounge, gesturing. Izuku walks in, tailed by the second-year student. A tall man with a gray suit stands in the center of the room, observing the door. Hello, sir. What did the janitor say when he jumped out of the closet? Sir Night Eye, the Sir Night Eye, chuckles. I don't know, what did the janitor say? Supplies. Sir Night Eye gives a small chortle, which gives way to uproarious laughter. Togata joins in, Izuku not far behind. The second year has an infectious laugh. This is Midoriya Izuku, the middle schooler I told you about. Wait, he talked about me to Sir Night Eye? He's a big fan. Sadly, I have to get to class. See you next time, bud. Togata waves before hurrying down the corridor, leaving Izuku alone with Sir Night Eye. It's a pleasure to meet you. Izuku bows. The hero stands there, staring, unmoving. So, you're Midoriya, says Sir Night Eye. I've heard much about you. There's an intensity in the air. Something about the hero's posture has Izuku immediately on the back foot. Yes, sir, he swallows. I've always looked up to. I watched your training exercise earlier, Sir Night Eye says. In every sense of the word, you are mediocre. I respect All Might a great deal, but on this matter, I cannot fathom what he was thinking. What? Izuku steps back. What's he talking about? When Togata told me you were here at UA training for the hero exam, I was surprised. To think UA would bend over backwards for someone like you. You have none of his presence, his inspiring qualities. You cannot become the next All Might, the next symbol of peace. Of course not, Izuku says, thinking back to what All Might told him on that rooftop. That he should be a hero like himself. I'm not All Might. Precisely. You should never have been chosen for One for All. Izuku reels. It makes sense for him to know, All Might and Sir Night Eye partnered for a long time. Night Eye was his strategist. Of course All Might told him about One for All. But what does Night Eye mean about him being chosen? He turned it down. Did no one tell him? Unheeding the thoughts swirling in Izuku's mind, Night Eye continues. Togata Mirio. He is the superior candidate. He should be the one to use one for all. You want me to give it to him? Izuku says slowly. Did Night Eye not know? Izuku doesn't even have the demon quirk. The sooner the better, the hero. He needs to master it as quickly as. I beg your pardon? Night Eye adjusts his tie, glaring down at Izuku's trembling form. Izuku spent 10 years in Aldra. 10 years being told he was an unevolved dying breed, not worth the trees cut down to make the paper in his notebooks. And he took it. He took it and said nothing. But that was then. His teachers were wrong. They were wrong and they were arrested. And Izuku is done. He spent 10 years being quiet. He's not going to turn the other cheek. Not this time. I'm sorry, was your head so far up but you couldn't hear me? I told you to go F yourself. Izuku clenches his fists so tightly it hurts. His throat burns, tears sting his eyes. You sound just like them. And I'm sick of taking that sheet. Them? Who's them? My teachers, Izuku spits, from Aldra. Night Eye flinches. Yeah, maybe you've heard of them. The ones who were arrested for being in a quirk supremacist cult? You sound just like them. Telling me I'm not worth the air I breathe because I'm not the expectation you had. How dare you accuse me of what? Izuku yells. Telling me I'm worthless? Trying to tear me down? I threw myself into training to be a hero. All I want is to help people. He moves a finger at Night Eye. And people like you, like them, come along and tell me I'm wrong to try. Nedzu erase her head, All Might, they all said I can do it, I don't need you. He takes a deep breath. I admired you. You were proof that you didn't need a physical quirk to be a great hero. The All Might's sidekick didn't have a flashy quirk. If you could do it, so could I. Izuku clicks his tongue. But if this is how controlling you are, I can see why All Might stopped working with you. Izuku spins on his heel and storms to the door. One more thing, sir. Night Eye says nothing, his expression somewhere between confusion and horror. I don't have one for all. I turned it down. The door slams behind him. Izuku wipes his eyes with his sleeve. I'll have to talk to Mr. Inui about this. Nedzu makes himself known before Sasaki has a chance to collect himself. Good afternoon, Sasaki, he says cheerfully, dropping from his hiding place in the vents. I certainly hope you had a good reason to verbally abuse a traumatized child. Sasaki flinches. Mirio should have. Oh, and what gives you the right to decide who gets one for all? Nedzu's false cheer doesn't so much as waver. As his sidekick and strategist, I know what the next symbol of peace needs to be. So, the decision of who inherits the quirk, a quirk you have never had yourself, falls to you? And in pursuit of that goal, you would discard a child based on your own assumptions? You didn't give him a chance to prove himself to you. You never even confirmed he possessed the quirk. I have no excuse, Sasaki says. There's still hope for him. But, the next symbol of peace, they cannot be chosen on a whim. They must have the right characteristics. And young Togata has these qualities? Of course. But Midoriya doesn't? Silence. You know, Yagi came to me in April saying he found a heroic child who wanted to save people for the sake of saving people. And this boy, he said, was a cunning analyst for his age. I met with him and was impressed. More so when I learned what his school did to him. The fact that he still wants to be a hero speaks to a strength of will I have never seen before. I see. How did you discern that Togata was the best candidate? Nedzu asks, clambering up onto the counter to reach the teapot. He's my intern. Indeed. And he has grown much under your care. I'm grateful. Nedzu pours tea into a cup. But why did you choose to send him an internship offer? He didn't even reach the final event of this year's sports festival, and his grades have never been much higher than average. Before you started teaching him, his control of his quirk was subpar. Bluntly, there were better candidates for you to choose. Nedzu sips his tea while Sasaki searches for the words. It's clear he's good-natured. He's kind and optimistic. He can inspire people. Nedzu nods. All of that is true. And that is why you offered him an internship. Yes. You've never offered internships before. I haven't. And you're sure this internship offer you gave him was not just because All Might told he planned to offer one for all to a quirkless middle schooler around that same time? Sasaki steps back. You're certain you didn't choose Togata because of his obvious physical similarities to All Might? Because he reminds you of the persona Yagi uses as a hero? Tell me, Sasaki Mirai, did you reach out to one of my students with the sole intent of grooming him to receive one for all? It would be a shame to have to mark your agency as one we will not accept internship or work-study offers from. Of course I didn't. Sasaki towers over Nedzu, but it has been a long time since a human intimidated him. Then why are you so adamant he receives the quirk? I'm not suggesting you're wrong. Togata is an excellent candidate. But why are you invested to the point of demanding Midoriya give up the quirk? He is the one who will be the next symbol of peace. Oh. Nedzu takes another sip from his tea. I don't need foresight to know that you're wrong about that, Sasaki. Excuse me? All Might will retire long before Togata reaches the level of influence he wields. Sasaki flinches at the word, retire. Interesting. One of his prophecies, perhaps? And when he does, Japan will be left with Endeavor as the #1 hero, and with no symbol of peace. Yagi is a pillar, and even he cannot bear the weight. When he collapses, what are you suggesting, Nedzu? Japan will have to change how we handle our heroics industry or die, he answers easily. He's given it much thought, lately, after Yagi confessed to how close the last-ditch attack from the Meta Liberation Army came to. Seriously injuring or even killing him. Sasaki paces, arms folded behind his back. Contemplation clear on his face. You're saying All Might will be the only symbol of peace. The only individual to bear that title, yes. Sasaki blanches, turning to look out the window. He does not move for several minutes. Eventually, Sasaki excuses himself to return to his agency. Nedzu calls out one last thing to say. In the future, when you question whether someone is worthy to uphold the legacy Yagi created, remember he too was once a quirkless middle schooler. Sasaki freezes. I will keep that in mind. And Sasaki is gone. It's strange. Despite being a ward of UA for several months, this is Himiko's first time actually visiting the school. The 4 buildings tower overhead. Izuku nudges her gently. You get used to it, he says, grinning cheekily. She nudges him back. You know, with how much time you spend here, I'm surprised Nedzu hasn't adopted you yet. If I did, he'd likely end up still living with you too, seeing as the dorm renovations aren't yet complete. Himiko shrieks as Nedzu appears on top of the outer wall by the gate. The principal laughs warmly, and Izuku and his mother join in, the traitors. It's a pleasure to see you again, Himiko. Happy birthday. She nods, and Nedzu slips back down on the other side of the wall. Izuku scans his pass and moves through the gate with practiced ease. His mother and Himiko both take a few swipes to get the card to read. Izuku and the principal are standing side by side in the courtyard, waiting. Himiko jogs lightly over to them. We'll be celebrating in the cafeteria today, Nedzu says, taking the lead into the building. The staff, alongside Yagi, are already there. The Shields send their regards but weren't able to finish your present before they had to return to Island. I've been assured Melissa is enthusiastic about completing the project for you. Project? Himiko asks. I wouldn't want to ruin the surprise. She can't see Nedzu's face from behind him, but she just knows he's grinning. But I suppose I could describe it as a machine which produces items to support your quirk without giving anything away. Naturally, Izuku immediately puts a thumb to his lip and begins muttering about possible support items for transform. Careful, Sunshine, his mom says. You're probably going to figure it out. Izuku jumps, then sheepishly rubs the back of his neck. Izuku had never told Himiko what the cafeteria looked like. The room stretched, fitting a dozen rows of tables, separated by small walls with foliage on top. The kitchen connected directly to the cafeteria, with a counter separating the servers from students. Seeing such a large room empty except for maybe a dozen people was surreal. UA after hours felt deserted. Izuku waves as their small group approaches the assembled teachers. A blond man waves back while another man in dark baggy clothes rolls his eyes. Good to see everyone is here, Nedzu says, scampering up onto the shoulders of the man in dark clothes. This, as you no doubt know, is Himiko. Would those of you who have not yet made her acquaintance introduce yourselves? Sure thing. I'm Yamada Hizashi, the blond man says. His voice is familiar. Present Mike. Himiko asks. Ah, a listener? He winks. I'm Ishiyama Ken, says a man with a flat, gray face. Aizawa Shoyuda, the black-clad man drawls. Hey kid, I'm glad to see you've got some meat on your bones again. Call me Kiyama, says the woman Himiko vaguely remembers. Himiko nods. She does look much healthier, says a short woman. Call me Chio, dear. A pleasure to make your acquaintance, says the cowboy. I'm Snipe. I am Ectoplasm, a pleasure, says the ghost man. Maima, says the man with red hair covering his face. I teach the support kids. Call me Inui, barks the dog man. Yue has a dog man? Wait, didn't Izuku says one of the heroes here was called Hound Dog? Was that literal? And I'm 13, said the astronaut. Yue sure had a diverse staff. And you already know Yagi, Ken, and me. Nedzu claps his paws together. Well then, I do believe it is almost time for Himiko's special dinner. Have you ever had jukatsu before? She shakes her head. It's an interesting dish. It's a beef cutlet, covered in a breadcrumb batter and fried quickly. This leaves the inside of the cutlet rare, so that you can cook it to your liking on a hot plate. Himiko made sure her mouth was still closed. It would have been embarrassing if anyone saw her drooling. A man dressed in a full chef's outfit, but with the hat, and is that a respirator? Covering his face emerges from the kitchen pushing a cart covered in stone hot plates, bowls of rice and vegetables, and plates of breaded beef. Let me, Mrs. Kiyama says, helping set the dishes out at the table. Himiko slid into her chair, Izuku next to her and Mom Izuku's mom across from her. Soon, everyone was seated, delicately lifting the slices of meat onto the hot plates. Himiko cautiously picked up one of her slices and took a bite. Oh, that was good. Lunch Rush wasn't a food-themed hero for nothing, it seems. You like rare meat? Mr. Yamada asks. Himiko grins, showing off her fangs. Right, should have guessed, he laughs. I'm glad you're enjoying the meal, Nedzu says. Himiko notes that he's also eating his cutlets rare. I rather thought it would be to your tastes. It's so good. Alright, I think it's time Present Mike got the little listeners presents. Mr. Yamada cheers. Mr. Aizawa winces from the noise. That pun was awful, he says. But you love me. Unfortunately. Mr. Aizawa sighs, pushing off against the table and rising to his feet. I'll help. You couldn't carry them all yourself. Mrs. Kiyama and the chef clear the dishes away as the table turns to idle chatter. Eventually the two return with stacks of boxes. Mr. Yamada sets his pile on the table in front of Mrs. Midoriya, just across from Himiko. Mr. Aizawa slides another set of boxes next to them. You guys all really went plus ultra for her, huh? He drawls. It's her first birthday in our care instead of her previous guardians. Nedzu give a chipper reply. It has to be special. Mr. Aizawa's mouth stretches into a wide grin. You're right, he says. It's only logical. He pulls a final box out from behind him and sets it on the table. Himiko glances over to Izuku, who rolls his eyes. Right? Izuku told her that Mr. Aizawa was secretly a softie. I believe it would be best to start with mine, for reasons I will explain, Nedzu says, taking a smaller box from the pile and passing it to Himiko. She unwraps the package and slides the lid up and off the box. Inside rests a long knife. Himiko gingerly removes the weapon, examining it. The blade is covered in a strange pattern almost like rippling water. I'm afraid you won't be allowed to take that off campus, Nedzu says. But with your quirk, having a bladed weapon is exceptionally useful. She nods. Isn't that Mr. Aizawa starts? Neo-Damascus steel, yes. Nedzu says. Izuku perks up. That's the really durable metal made from quirks and based on that really old special steel, right? Indeed. Nedzu laughs. That knife is the closest thing to indestructible humans have even made, with weaponry at least. It's incredibly sharp, do be careful, and it's hard to dull. Wow, Himiko breathes. Can I have this in Class C? Nedzu smiles softly. Of course. Majima? I'll have something for it in the costume design by the time her second year starts, the engineer says. Ooh, me next. Mrs. Kayama calls, gesturing to one of the boxes, a rectangular box 5 centimeters tall. Himiko snorts and takes the box, pulling of the wrapping paper. Inside is a cardboard box with the Fraladeja department store logo. Close? She opens it. Close. Cute clothes. In the same red shirt, dark blue overshirt, style she loves. Jiro really knew what she was talking about. These are adorable. Himiko says. Oh dear. It seems we had the same idea, Mrs. Chio says. I suppose you should open mine next then, keep on theme. Himiko carefully closes the magnetically clasped box again and sets it off to the side. Nedzu hands Mrs. Midoriya several large gift bags and the woman starts placing her opened gifts inside. Himiko takes the gift from Mrs. Chio, another box from Fraladeja. Oh. Himiko says, I didn't think to get winter clothes yet. The box contains several sweaters of various patterns, all adorable. Himiko loves them. The next gift turns out to be from Mr. Majima. It's a series of reference images and pictures of pro-heroes with unorthodox quirks, as well as some vampire concept art. You do need to submit a costume for Class C, he reminds her. She nods. Mr. Yamada got her a signed album from one of the musical guests on his show. That guest had been one of her favorites. Mr. Inui got her a cookbook he'd apparently assembled, compiling various recipes from around the world. The book is filled with blood sausages, blood soups, and blood curds among other similar meals, none of which she'd heard of before she lived with Mrs. Midoriya. We'll have to try these, Mrs. Midoriya says. Eventually, Himiko makes her way through the pile of gifts. Mr. Aizawa is the only staff member whose gift she hasn't yet opened. She tears the wrapping paper off to find a plastic-sealed cardboard box, covered in brand names and numbers she doesn't really get, but the large central picture of a laptop certainly makes sense to her. Izuku starts. Isn't that the Inspiration 4750? The best computer currently on the market. It's only logical, he says. It will help her study as well as socialize more. He's grinning the whole time. Of course. Your only reasons, I'm sure. Izuku says. Careful, brat. I still help determine whether you pass the entrance exams. And it would look bad if you trained me for almost a year and I still didn't get in, Izuku replies without hesitating, wearing a sheet-eating grin. Besides, it would make Hime sad. Mr. Aizawa barked out a short laugh, and Himiko grinned. Finally, only the Midoriyas are left. Izuku hands a cardboard tube to her. Here, he says. She takes it from him and pulls the cap off. Inside is a rolled-up piece of paper. It feels glossy like a poster under her fingers. She gingerly pulls it out. Oh, she recognizes this style. The poster is an illustration of a cloaked figure standing over an ominous castle. It's the same artist who drew the posters she got for her room way back when. You remembered, she says. Izuku rubs the back of his neck. I thought, since you like the ones you had so much, I could expand your collection. She pulls him into a quick hug. Thank you, Aizu. Happy birthday, Hime. Mrs. Midoriya stands and moves around the table to stand next to her. She opens her purse and retrieves a large manila envelope, which she hands carefully to Himiko. She can see Mrs. Midoriya is already close to tears. Cautiously, Himiko opens the envelope, pulling out a small stack of papers. Himiko schemes over the text. Paperwork? Why would Mrs. Midoriya get her paperwork as a present? What's this first heading? Consent to adoption? What? Are these? Himiko chokes out. Is this what I think it is? We've already signed everything we need to, Nedzu says. Give the word, and you'll officially be part of the family, Izuku says, wiping the corner of his eyes. You really want me? She whispers. Mrs. Midoriya pulls her into a tight embrace. Of course we do, dear. I told you we wouldn't throw you away. Over these past few months, I've been delighted to watch you come out of your shell. What about your husband? Hisashi. We already asked him, Mrs. Midoriya says. We always wanted a larger family, but his job meant we never really got the chance. He's sorry he couldn't be here for this. Himiko starts, barely audible. Can I have your family name? Of course, dear. Himiko sobs loudly, crying into Mrs. Midoriya mom's shirt. She feels Izuku her brother rubbing her back. Once they've calmed down enough, Nedzu helps mom fill out the rest of the paperwork. Once she's done, he takes the papers from her, promising to get everything filed. Congratulations, Himiko. Nedzu pauses, grinning impishly, or should I say Midoriya? Midoriya Himiko. It rings like music in her ears. The staff bow and wish her well, and Himiko follows her family, her brother, her mom back to her apartment. This is it. The rest of her life will forever be downhill. Because this has to be the best day of her life. Chapter 20, Midoriya Himiko's birthday, 16 years old.